In the year 21XX, Earth is no longer what it used to be. It's become a chaotic wasteland. Tearing through the dark clouds, an ominous ship cruises through the wrecked atmosphere. Focusing on the radar are MC radios and that he's finally found the target. Right after, the ship dives headfirst toward the location marked on the map. Down below, the view is just plain sad, showing the ruins of a city that was once full of life. Desperate, a survivor runs through the wreckage, begging for help. Crying his eyes out, the boy screams at the top of his lungs, asking if anyone is there. Suddenly, a giant, muscular monster crashes down, shattering the ground right in front of him. Terrified, the kid backs away as the hideous creature prepares to pounce. Making things worse, another beast pops up behind the young man, who swallows hard, crying out for help. With nowhere to run, the poor guy screams for anyone who can hear him. Clutching a family photo, all he wants is a small chance to live. Surrounded by the beasts that destroyed the world, the end seems inevitable. Closing his eyes, the survivor prays to the heavens for someone to make these monsters pay. At that exact moment, an insane beam of light rips through the sky, crushing the creature on impact. Lying on the ground, the boy hears a calm voice apologizing for being late. Emerging from the smoke, our hero appears with an imposing presence, and the survivor asks who he is. With a serious and confident look, the platinum-haired man assesses the boy's condition. Coughing up blood, the injured young man breaks into a smile of pure relief and whispers, finally, pointing with difficulty toward the dead city. The kid asks if they'll finally be able to take back the world. Nodding in agreement, our warrior assures him they will. Unfortunately, the boy doesn't make it, and the hero tells him to rest in peace. Wiping the young man's tears, the platinum-haired hero thanks him for his bravery. Amidst the rubble, silence takes over as the hero mourns the loss. Head bowed, our protagonist takes a moment of silence for the fallen. Just then, the radio crackles and a voice asks if Jin was too late. Over the communicator, a scientist in glasses reports that he was likely the last survivor in the area and tells the hero to accept the harsh truth. Listening in silence, the warrior processes the gravity of the situation. Without beating around the bush, the doctor drops the bombshell: humanity is officially done for. Born from the planet's extreme pollution, the mutant monsters had taken over every corner of the globe. Known as corruptors, these beasts became the new global plague. With an absurd healing factor, they even tanked the military's nuclear strikes. Roaring fiercely, the colossal beast proves that the world's arsenal is useless against them. Even so, humans didn't throw in the towel, and after several bizarre experiments, they found a way to fight back. But the scientist gets real, questioning who's even left to be saved now. Sadly, he states that they were far too late to save any civilians. However, the warrior in the coat stands his ground, claiming there's still something valuable there. Walking through the debris, the scientist doubts there are any survivors, and our MC simply agrees. Turning his face to the orange sky, he says that hope lies in the distant future. Explaining the strategy, he mentions the nanomachines the doctor created, which heal the environment. Showing the bright green core in the hand of the slain monster, the power of the technology becomes clear. Besides stopping the beast's regeneration, these little beauties also speed up the planet's recovery. Ever the optimist, our hero declares that one day, Earth will be beautiful again. With a faint smile, the doctor thinks it sounds like a fairy tale but agrees that civilization might flourish once more. Turning his back, the warrior says that's good enough for him. Believing in that, maybe, our MC decides to bet everything on this tiny possibility of victory. Entering the corridors of an underground lab, he trusts that his power will be vital in the future. Inside a high-tech pod, the hero prepares for his long nap while the scientist works the panels. Deep in thought, the bespectacled doctor reflects that believing in this hunch might actually save tomorrow. Pressing a button on the glass, he affirms that passing this chance forward makes it all worthwhile. Immediately, cryosleep is activated, and the year counter starts from 0 in a world infested with abominations. The years fly by on the screen, and the planet, seen from space, remains a sick, red color. Thousands of years pass, and the corpses of the giants begin to dry up on the arid land. Hitting the millions mark, Earth already shows shades of blue and green, healing its wounds. Slowly, the old beasts turn into fossils, becoming part of the new landscape. Nearing 100,000 years, nature takes over everything, and weeds grow over the skulls. Fast forwarding to 300,000, the beaches once again have clear water and white sand. Surpassing hundreds of millions of years, the globe is now picture perfect, looking brand new. Tens of millions of years fly by as normal animals, like happy rabbits, run across the fresh grass. Finally hitting the 1 billion year mark, the access key is confirmed, and the machine begins to awaken our hero. Cutting to the new era, we see legs running fast and a panting girl breaking out in a cold sweat. Behind her, a black wolf with glowing eyes mercilessly hunts a trio of kids with animal ears. Totally desperate, the boy asks if the safe place really exists, and the girl swears it does. Guiding the group, she warns that if they don't find it, they can consider themselves monster cho. Running for her life, the leader of the trio doesn't dare look back. Focused on her goal, she repeats in her mind that the guardian god has to be in that place. Passing through a stone corridor, the children arrive in a bright, enclosed space. Looking up, the trio gets the shock of their lives at what they find. Right in front of a giant metal gate, the little boy breaks down crying, saying it's a dead end. Completely frozen, the girl feels her hope go right down the drain. Drooling and roaring loudly, the big bad wolf catches up to the kids, who go into a full-blown panic. Trapped against the wall, the leader clasps her hands together, trembling violently. Crying a river, she pleads with all her might for the guardian god to save them. Suddenly, a digital panel lights up in the dark, displaying the word "Understood." With an insane bang, the gate bursts open, firing a blinding beam of light into the beast's face, leaving everyone's jaw on the floor. After the dust settles, the girl reminds her friends that it was worth believing in the legend. Just then, heavy footsteps echo as a barefoot figure emerges from the white smoke. Showing off a ripped bod, our MC finally awakens, putting his faith in the future. The platinum-haired man then opens a tech panel, satisfied to see his old clothes stored there. In front of the base's computer, the warrior tries to process how long he was asleep. Almost all the system data is corrupted, but the guy considers it a miracle the base is still in one piece. Noticing a syringe on the floor, it clicks that the nanomachines in the atmosphere helped preserve everything. Curious about the planet's current state, the hero looks at the message cube left by the scientist. But before diving in, he turns to the kids, wanting to hear their story, and apologizes for being butt naked. In total shock, the children stand frozen, staring at the guy who slept in the buff for ages. Quickly, our MC slips on his classic black overcoat, commenting on how well the outfit suits him. Then, the shelter's gigantic steel doors open, revealing the sunlight. Passing through the gates, the group comes face to face with a completely different landscape. Before the untouched nature, the platinum-haired man admires the view of Earth millions of years later. Thoroughly impressed, the girl calls our hero the guardian god, telling him everything has changed. Leading the way, the girl asks him to follow the group down a forest path. Right behind them, the warrior observes his small guides with a very analytical gaze. Intrigued, he realizes it makes no sense for humans to be alive since humanity was wiped out. The logical conclusion, then, is that these creatures evolved over time, gaining animalistic traits. The biology of this new race was definitely altered by the presence of nanomachines in the air. Speaking the same ancient language is the perfect proof, and then our MC realizes he hasn't even introduced himself. Getting straight to it, he tells them to just call him Jin, and the leader introduces herself as Hakama. Excited, the other two kids quickly say their names are Dampu and Shandy. Cutting to the chase, Jin asks what the kids want from him, and the girl says their destination is close. Looking at the hero, the girl begs him to defeat the corruptors, and the name sets off an alarm for our platinum-haired hero. Suddenly, the boy with cat ears' eyes go wide with pure terror. Far away, the kid's entire village is up in flames, covered in black smoke. Desperate, the boys take off running toward the fire, screaming for their parents. With a grim face, Jin analyzes the village's destruction in complete silence. At the entrance, the wooden barricades have been reduced to nothing but burning wood and ash. Near the wooden houses, the hero notes the fragility of those ancient defenses. Walking through the chaotic scene, he instantly gets that these people's technology is pretty rudimentary. Suddenly, the duo freezes in place upon seeing a terrifying scene in the middle of the street. Right in front of them, a bizarre monster is trying to devour an old woman, who's screaming for her granddaughter to run. Using all her strength, the old lady holds back the beast's toothy maw with a long staff. Cold as ice, our MC recognizes the creature instantly, confirming the threat. Confused by the similarity, he wonders if the monsters from the old days are still the same in this new era. Ignoring the order to flee, the girl swears to save her grandma and activates a luminous magic that catches Jin's attention. Wasting no time, the platinum-haired man charges the beast, saying he's going to confirm a theory. In a lightning-fast blow, Jin hits the creature's stomach with an explosive punch. After the impact, the monster releases its victim, and the warrior takes his stance, calmly asking for a little room. With the opening created, the girl focuses all her magic into her glowing staff, ready to strike back. Quickly, the tip of the weapon gathers an incredibly hot and focused orange energy. In the blink of an eye, she fires a massive fireball right at the abomination's face. The attack hits its mark, causing a sinister explosion that fries the enemy's face. Staring at the smoldering carcass, Jin concludes that the monster's regeneration failed thanks to the nanomachines. A question then pops into his head. Did the girl pull that power directly from the atmosphere? In his old memories, it's clear that only humans with 100% compatibility could control this technology. Curious, the hero turns to the old woman, asking if everyone in the village can shoot fire like that, and she immediately says no. Calling the gift divine power, the woman explains that only 4 people there possess it, confirming the protagonist's theory. Just then, the granddaughter runs over, worried, asking about the rest of the villagers, and hears that they've all been evacuated. Despite her relief, the old woman scolds them, demanding to know why the young ones risked their own lives. Utterly hopeless, the matriarch lets out a bitter sigh, declaring the definitive end of their village. Right then, a disgusting sound of a shell cracking draws everyone's attention to the monster's fried remains. From the ashes emerges a crawling larva, proving that the first abomination was just a newborn. From behind the smoke, the real giant boss emerges, ready to lead a swarm against the village. Suddenly, a warrior wielding a spear arrives, acting all tough and telling the grandmother not to lose hope. With a cocky smile, the newcomer, named Sarius, promises to tear the beast apart by himself without breaking a sweat. The little boy then asks about the civilians, and the newcomer assures him he took everyone to the hideout. Overjoyed, the leader reunites with her father, who is scared to bits looking for his daughter everywhere. When she confesses to breaking into the sealed gate, her father completely loses his mind with fear. To justify herself, the girl points to the platinum-haired man, saying she brought the guardian god from the legends to save everyone. In disbelief, the old woman sizes up the stranger from head to toe, not buying it. In a purely mocking tone, the spearman Sarius lets out a laugh, stating that Jin doesn't look like a god. Annoyed, the guy tells the girl to stop with the ill-timed jokes during a crisis like this. Not missing a beat, the show-off calls our hero an inferior species, and the taunt catches the platinum-haired man's attention. Trying to defend our MC, the spearman's younger brother steps in front but gets a major chewing out. With a finger in the warrior's face, the tough guy points to his round ears, declaring the newcomer's weakness. But the kids don't back down, yelling that the stranger just wrecked a corruptor moments ago. Unimpressed, the jerk brags that killing a larva is no big deal for a true warrior. With a deep sigh, the real savior asks everyone to shut up and listen for a second. But the spearman, blinded by pride, raises his weapon, saying this is the village's problem, and tells the newcomer to get lost. Already turning his back, the guy issues one last warning for Jin not to stick his nose where it doesn't belong. Even so, the father tries to stop the madness, but the warrior insists he's going to face the adult monster head-on. To cap off his show of arrogance, the nutjob smiles, telling everyone to cower over there while he handles everything. Furious, the grandma calls the warrior an idiot, because if he ran, at least he'd stay alive. Silent, our MC just watches the pathetic scene without a single reaction. Looking directly at the platinum-haired man, the matriarch begs for help to escort the children safely to the shelter. But the girl immediately refuses the offer, deciding to risk her own life alongside the spearman. Without changing his expression, Jin also denies the old woman's request in a very blunt way. Full of pride, the young leader puffs out her chest, saying she'll fight for the village. With a firm step, the hero warns that he'd never let someone call him an inferior species, only to kick the bucket right after. Far away, the giant monster roars fiercely, announcing the start of the chaos. With heavy steps, the colossal creature advances, destroying the forest in its path. Standing right in front of the beast, Sarius gets the creature's attention with a whole lot of swagger. Full of himself, the show-off swears to carry the weight of the country on his shoulders to become a holy knight. When the beast threatens to attack, the warrior readies his spear, charged with pure electricity. With an incredibly high jump, the rookie yells that he'll take down the abomination without anyone's help. But the disgusting creature just opens its gigantic maw, ready to swallow the guy whole. Suddenly, several tentacles shoot out of the murky water, catching the spearman completely by surprise. Out of nowhere, small larvae sprout from the ground, closing in and ruining the newcomer's strategy. Desperate, the warrior swings his electric spear in every direction, yelling for them to get out of his way. Focusing on the giant boss, he vows to end the fight in a single, decisive blow. With his whole body propelled forward, the show-off drives the tip of his weapon right into the enemy's face. Unleashing all the stored energy, a brutal electric explosion erupts at the point of impact. Believing he's won the duel, the arrogant guy flashes a victorious smile in mid-air, but the colossal beast roars without even feeling a tickle, and the spearman lands on the ground, thoroughly frustrated. To make matters worse, the deep gash on the abomination's face closes in a matter of milliseconds. Horrified, the rookie realizes the enemy's absurd regeneration far too late. Immediately, a heavy tail comes down, tearing through the wind toward the boy's head. Completely frozen, the spearman can't dodge and accepts his imminent end. In the blink of an eye, Jin appears, creating a nanomachine shield and asking if the guy is done with his little show. Stuttering in shock, Sarius can barely form a sentence as he watches the stranger play the hero. Furious at the interruption, the monster attacks again, wanting to crush the two intruders. Easily, our protagonist slides back, dodging the deadly pounce without breaking a sweat. Cracking his knuckles, the hero prepares the perfect counter-attack for a beast of that size. Suddenly, a colossal beam of energy erupts from the ground, piercing the beast's belly from the bottom up. Seeing the creature scream in pain, the other guards approach, yelling for their leader. Quickly, the soldiers try to reach the battlefield, crossing the shallow river. Far away, the girl's father and the old woman's jaws drop at the absurd display of power. Completely confused, the matriarch quietly asks what the heck just happened in front of them. Watching in disbelief, she notices that the beast's gigantic body was lifted off the ground with just one hand. Feeling the creature's weight, Jin tells Sarius to back off before the dust settles. Grabbing the spearman by the scruff of his neck, the platinum-haired man quickly gets the guy out of the danger zone. Right behind them, the beast collapses back into the water, causing a terrifying tremor. With a gentle leap, our hero lands in a safe spot and drops the dead weight of the guard. Lying on the damp earth, Sarius stares at his savior, demanding to know who he really is. Straight to the point, Jin explains that causing physical damage to these things is useless due to their instant healing. With a finger on the glowing wound, the platinum-haired man says that inhibiting their regeneration is the only key to victory. Finally it clicks, and the spearman discovers that their so-called divine power is actually the pure use of nanomachines. Reevaluating his own electric attack, Sarius understands that the wound wasn't deep enough to stop the healing system. Terrified, the arrogant guard asks if Jin is, in fact, the guardian god their people worship. Turning his attention back to the enemy, the platinum-haired man says he doesn't remember becoming a deity, but has a message to deliver. Using the rookie's own words, our MC calls him out on his earlier speech about the problem being exclusive to the village. Ashamed, the guy tries to make an excuse but is cut off bluntly by the real hero. Facing the giant beast, the warrior states in no uncertain terms that this mess is now entirely his. Filled with rage, the abomination rises, splashing water everywhere, ready for another round. Quickly, several deadly tentacles fly out, trying to impale our protagonist from a distance. Extremely calm, the platinum-haired man decrees that the first step in combat is to paralyze the pre's movement. With top-tier agility, the hero blocks and dodges the precise blows at an impressive pace. In a swift move, he grabs one of the claws, freezing the entire disgusting limb. For the first time, Sarius understands that these monsters were born from the foolishness of the ancient civilization. Gathering immense power in his right hand, the platinum-haired man prepares the grand finale for the huge monster. With rage on his face, he says he bears responsibility for this, as he lived in the same era when the planet was destroyed. Surrounded by an imposing electric aura, our MC declares he's the only one who can fix this age-old mess. Utterly lost in the stranger's explanations, the guard asks if he can handle it, receiving a yes, loaded with confidence. In Jin's mind, old memories show that he is the cruel result of countless attempts and military tragedies. Scenes of armies firing reveal the bloody and dark history of the old human race dominating the globe. Bizarre lab tests prove the sick limits that scientists crossed in their blind pursuit of more power. Filled with blue energy, the warrior calls himself the ultimate and final human weapon created back in the past. In an absurd attack, a devastating laser shoots from our MC's hands, tearing through the entire landscape from the ground to the sky. Engulfed by the destructive light, the giant beast becomes a silhouette, screaming as it completely melts away. Completely carbonized, the corruptor's body disintegrates in the air, not even leaving dust behind to tell the tale. Immediately, a massive pillar of energy illuminates everything around, sealing the hero's flawless victory. Far away, all the villagers watch the light show, their eyes popping out of their heads. Full of hope, little Hakama breaks into a true smile of pure happiness and relief. Passing through the clouds, the beam of light reaches outer space, marking the insane power level of this single attack. Back on the ground, only steam remains on the hot water, marking the tomb of the vanquished enemy. In a state of shock, Sarius can barely blink at the brutal demonstration of raw power and technology. With his back to the wind, the hero watches the horizon in peace, promising to protect the last remnants of planet Earth. From a distance, a mysterious guy concludes that all this destruction can only be the work of a scientific weapon. Hiding in the bushes, the spy analyzes the impact site near the water. Over the communicator, he informs military base that he went to investigate the appearance of intruders near Kodama village. Totally shocked, the informant stutters as he reports the insane beam of light that outshone even the captain of the Royal Knights. On the other end of the line, the operator in glasses completely freaks out at the bombshell information. In an absolute panic, the woman orders the team to return to the royal capital at the speed of light. Far away, our hero watches a hologram of the old doctor, who warns that she's likely already kicked the bucket by now. With a sincere smile, the woman confesses she always wanted to deliver a dramatic farewell line. Wasting no time, she changes the subject, wanting to know if the environment has healed and if the world has turned green. Deadly serious, the scientist throws a bucket of cold water on his optimism, revealing a gigantic problem. Straight to the point, the posthumous message states that cleaning up nature isn't enough to take out all the corruptors. Focused on the glowing screen, the platinum-haired man listens to the danger warning in complete silence. In the recording, his ally says she noticed an anomaly about 1,000 years after the warrior's cryosleep began. To monitor the global situation closely, she also used cryosleep, waking up periodically. With the environmental recovery skyrocketing, the satellite did indeed show a massive drop in the number of monsters. However, the orbital tracker focused on a grim detail crossing the forests. Along with Earth's evolution, the plague also underwent extreme mutations in the remnants of the chaos. With a bizarre humanoid form, the new mutant sported a murderous aura far worse than the giants. Confirming the birth of the variants, the scientist laments the appearance of this highly evolved plague. Faced with this macabre sight, she guarantees these beasts will be a major headache for the reborn humanity. With few viable options, the doctor tinkered with the DNA of the new living races, giving them genetic tools to take on the beasts. Besides this masterstroke, the system prepared a special upgrade focused on the protagonist himself. Curious about the gift, our MC holds the floating cube, trying to understand the nature of this new power. He picks up and holds the syringe in his hand. According to the woman, he just had to inject the glowing goo, and the sea of nanomachines would teach him the whole trick. Thanks to the hero's body's perfect compatibility, the modification activated a divine technology function. With his eyes fixed on his own hands, the platinum-haired man feels the static energy coursing through his veins. In the blink of an eye, the dense light materializes a deadly knife from thin air in the middle of his palm. Extremely satisfied, the warrior finds it super practical to shape sharp objects by mastering the nanomachines in the air. Back to the hologram, his partner reports having spread several power-ups like this in shelters around the globe to prevent a bunch of mutants from destroying the upgrades all at once. The tactic was to decentralize the vaults across the map. In an almost melancholic tone, the old friend confesses that the real idea was to force Jin to travel and live life to the fullest. Pointing to a medieval scene worthy of a movie, she admits she has no idea how society grew. Even fearing the threats, the scientist's heart held on to hope in the potential of the new civilizations. In a quick comparison to the apocalyptic hell of the past, the present already looks like paradise on Earth. In the panoramic image, horses and carts cross enormous bridges under a radiant and peaceful sun. Panoramas of the capital show gigantic squares surrounded by well-built buildings. Inside crowded libraries, young people focus on their studies, enjoying the calm and the preserved knowledge. Overjoyed, the doctor asks from the bottom of her heart for the soldier to war less and enjoy every day of the new planet. Unfortunately, the signal starts to fail, breaking up the light projection as she says goodbye forever. Close to fading out completely, the ally makes one last plea, demanding that the boy see the story through to the end. With a heavy heart, our hero faces the funereal silence left by the end of the recording. Nostalgic with the weight of his mission, the young man accepts carrying the burden of the entire planet on his shoulders. Stashing the device in his black coat, he gives a nod to the kids who arrive, calling for the so-called guardian god. Super excited, the boys say the entire tribe spent all night searching for their savior deep in the woods. Grabbing his coat firmly, the kids pull the warrior, demanding his VIP presence at the official celebration. Suddenly, the platinum-haired man freezes, his eyes focusing on a small detail dangling nearby. Hanging around Hakama's neck, an old necklace catches his eye, looking very much like a modern lab key. Intrigued by the equipment, he asks the kid directly where she got that high-clearance tech accessory. Full of pride, the leader replies that the jewel was given by a legend and passed down as an amulet for each generation of her family. Right after, the girl recites the folklore, saying that the sacred stone would call for the god's protection in dark times. Quick on the uptake, the guy connects the dots, understanding how the kids unlock the shelter, and whispers a thank you to the past. Back at the smoky village, the scene is now one of pure celebration, with a gigantic bonfire in the center of the set, up tents. Surrounded by full plates and overflowing mugs, the natives shout, calling the hero to the party. From afar, the cocky spearman locks his eyes on the living legend joining the circle of happy people. Listening to the worst kind of gossip, the villagers doubt the stranger, judging him by his round-eared species. Full of doubt, the gossiping villagers find it impossible that the skinny guy in black wrecked that tank of a monster. Suddenly, the guys jump up, breaking into a cold sweat as the imposing figure passes right by them. Furious at the lack of respect, Sarius explodes in a shout, saying that everyone ran off and didn't see the divine massacre up close. Suddenly, the warrior's tough guy act vanishes, replaced by a gushing fanboy, drooling over the Supreme Savior's aura. Away from the chaos, our protagonist walks calmly toward the tribal leader and the grumpy old woman. Bowing deeply in a sign of extreme respect, the girl's father declares an eternal debt to the stranger. Being completely sincere, the old man confesses that his people would have been wiped out if not for the miracle and offers to pay the heroic cost. Cool as a cucumber, Jin cracks a smirk, telling them to forget about material debts or rewards in gold. Taking advantage of the leadership's willingness, he negotiates his payment, asking for intensive lessons on the current geopolitical gossip. Surprised by the fee, the father questions why he's so interested in a summary of how civilization is doing. Quick on the draw, the old woman gets straight to the point, pointing down the road directly to the capital of Cremosia as the best encyclopedia. In our MC's mind, the vision of the giant castle shines, knowing that all trade routes lead to this wealthy kingdom. Proud of their finances, the grandmother reveals that merchants from Kodama travel there to push fancy silk on the elite. Aware of the bandits on the road, she says the distance is punishing, but a corrupter, Slayer would cruise through it laughing, creating a perfect bridge. The old woman throws her own granddaughter into the deal, serving as a human compass for the journey to the big city. Sitting the explosive magic the little girl used, the old woman confides her wish to enroll the kid in a military academy in the metropolis. The next morning, the sun tears through the low clouds, bathing the rebuilt valley in warm light and clear skies. Outside, the platinum-haired savior raises his arms, enjoying the pure breeze and cracking his back for the long journey ahead. Enchanted by the color palette of the untouched nature, the hero breathes in the peace, knowing his old nightmare is truly over. A wardrobe change is happening in the village, and our MC reflects on whether his old friend Kagura would like the new local fashion. Carrying a pile of new clothes, the cat-eared boy gets the legend's attention. Completely naked again at the door, the platinum-haired man receives the new clothes from the tribe, and the little boy begs him to put them on. Dressed for adventure, the stranger and his little guide finally hit the road under the big blue sky. Behind the fence, the old woman tells her granddaughter to do her job as a guide without embarrassing herself, and the girl firmly agrees. Grumpy and with a massive pout, the spear-wielding warrior Sarius complains angrily about not being chosen as the deity's luxury bodyguard. Bluntly, the old woman tells the big guy to shut his trap, warning him that he needs to study a lot before getting that job. Full of determination, the big guy promises to work his butt off to catch up with the travelers in the big city. Very surprised, he understands he needs to train hard and listens to the family's request to take good care of the girl. Goodbyes are said, and the father cries, asking his daughter to come home in one piece after seeing the world. Resolute, the savior announces that the journey has begun, cutting short the crowd's tears. Step by step, the duo walks through the forests, crossing small, mirror-like lakes. Far from the village, the two follow the course of a wide river in the middle of a flowery valley. In the late afternoon, the landscape changes, and a giant waterfall provides a refreshing stop for the pair to drink some water. Whole days pass with the sun rising and setting, revealing the scale of the new, wild, and beautiful world. As night falls, the campfire is already burning bright, and the hero asks when they'll be knocking on the castle's door. Chewing on some dry grub, the girl says they have about 4 more days of walking on the dirt road. Tired of chewing, our MC questions the little one's extreme curiosity about seeing the rest of the continent. Without beating around the bush, she throws the question back at him, asking his reason, and gets a cold, "It's a secret," in response. In his memory, the haunting words of the ancient scientist echo again, proving that the threat was never eradicated. The fact is, even after all that time, the race of giant monsters refused to go extinct. Theoretically, the doctor had sworn they only reproduced amidst the heavy radioactive waste of the past. But in the middle of the dark lake, the platinum-haired man knows in his mind that the ecosystem evolved, forcing the issue again. Noticing the heavy tension, the girl says that the savior's terrified face is giving her some serious chills. Quickly apologizing, he admits to losing focus and returns to the immediate problems at hand. In a leap of perception, the girl vows to investigate this plague as soon as they reach the safe capital. Changing the subject, the hero asks her to drop the whole deity thing and just call him by his normal human name. Suddenly, the loud sound of hooves pounding the earth interrupts the calm conversation of the silent night. Quickly, the pair turns to see an imposing group approaching through the dark horizon. Smiling cordially, the blonde man on the horse apologizes profusely for disturbing the peace of their night camp. Mounted on a black horse and wearing shiny armor, the stranger asks for a moment of their time. Staring coldly, our warrior quickly notices the golden details on the luxury armor and the fancy sword at his waist. Without getting up, Jin asks bluntly who the heck this well-dressed visitor is. Full of pomp, the man introduces himself as Argus Walton, the captain of the 7th Division of the capital's official order. Intrigued by the title, the platinum-haired man connects it to the divine order, quietly commenting on the surprising fact that royal knights exist here. Extremely nervous, the captain's subordinate snarls like an angry guard dog, scowling at the natives. With no filter, the squire yells, demanding that the round-eared bums stand up to speak with the highest authority. In an aggressive reflex, Argus yanks hard on the reins, telling the crazy woman to cool it immediately. Maintaining his diplomacy, the blonde man apologizes for his partner's rudeness and tries to restart the conversation without the drama. Focused on the risky situation, Jin sighs, getting up and assuming the patrol must be on the hunt for real criminals. Without blinking, the leader wants answers on the tip of his tongue about the destination and origin of the 2 forest travelers. Frightened, the guide swallows hard, replying that they left Kodama heading straight for the gates of the big city. Utterly disbelieving, the scandalous guard cracks a malicious smile, as if she'd just caught 2 liars in her net. With absurd arrogance, she points her finger in the duo's face, calling them cheap imposters and fake country folk. Yelling at the top of her lungs, the soldier declares that there are no official records of inferior species being born in the Kodama woods. Analyzing the information, Jin mentally concludes that the entire kingdom's bureaucracy must be very well structured. But the guard's mocking face disappears as soon as the blonde man shatters her flimsy argument. Patiently, he explains that the girl's clothes are made of expensive fine silk that only true nobles can afford. Chewing his partner out, the chief reaffirms that children's clothes like that completely confirm the girl's native identity. In a swift motion, the captain draws his own sword, sensing an even greater danger in the darkness. Placing the blade near Jin's face, he accuses the platinum-haired stranger of being up to no good. Focusing on the black coat and unfamiliar clothes, Argus questions the origin of our MC's extravagant fashion sense. Laying out the incident report, the blonde man tells of recent crimes where thieves use defenseless kids as bait for robberies. Comparing the criminals' tactics, the leader accuses our hero of kidnapping the high-class little girl to profit in the shadows. Terrified by the misunderstanding, Hakama steps in front, yelling that it's all a lie from the official guard. Angered by the peasant's audacity, the subordinate puts her hand on her sword, vowing to shut them both up by force. Surprisingly, the little girl focuses energy into her palm, generating the classic electric aura in front of the soldiers. Without showing any panic, the blonde captain studies the luminous spark forming in the supposed hostage's small palms. Asserting his authority over the child, he orders her in an iron voice to put out the little magic fire before it causes real trouble. Though pressured, the subordinate thinks about how bizarre it is to find a commoner manipulating the divine gift on the dirt roads. Protecting the guide's back, Jin ignores the tension and wonders if this little captain can handle a straight-up fight. Maintaining his intimidating pose, Argus reflects and warns that the answers given by the man in black will decide who bites the dust. Truly laying on the terror, the blonde man aims the sharp tip directly at the savior's neck, promising to resolve the chaos right then and there. Full of authority, the leader claims he's ready to slice up the enemy right there on the wet ground. Silent as a ghost, our hero just scowls, analyzing every opening in the captain's overconfident stance. Reinforcing his warning, the blonde man once again asks for the strange man's exact hometown, swearing to cut his head off if he detects a lie in his tone. Completely consumed by duty, he holds the deadly glint of the blade, staring the platinum-haired man in the eyes. Cold and calculating, Jin processes all the information exchanged in the last few minutes, choosing the path of least resistance. In a deadly silence, our MC just continues to stare at the night before opening his mouth. With beads of sweat on his forehead, Argus waits for any attacking move or wrong word to start the inevitable combat. With a long, wary sigh, the traveler says he came from the quiet little village in the middle of nowhere that the girl mentioned. Instantly, the furious subordinate tries to counter the argument with the facts she spewed at the beginning of the conversation. However, her boss cuts her off again, saying he felt pure conviction in the dark stranger's words. Sheathing his fancy sword, he turns to the little girl and questions if the rumors from the countryside are true. Surprising the forest duo, he asks with a smile if the skinny guy is really the incarnation of the mountain's guardian god. Suspicious of the divine title, the blonde man sizes up our hero from head to toe with a clinical eye. In a blunt tone, our MC quickly agrees to end the small talk right there. Maintaining his official etiquette, the captain says his goodbyes, stating that encounters like this are part of the guard's hard work. Mounted on his horse, he bets on a reunion soon, since they're all heading to the same royal capital. Quite cordially, the leader leaves the invitation hanging in the air in case the strangers need to call in a little favor for the trouble on the road. With a subtle pull of the reins, the troop turns its back on the camp to resume their patrol in the dead of night. With the tension gone, Jin lets out a sigh of relief, like someone who almost started a fight for no reason. Far from the travelers, the angry subordinate loses control, wanting to know why they back down from two suspicious country folk. Blinded by hatred, she puffs out her chest, yelling that the skinny guy is the worst kind and exudes pure danger. With a dark look, the chief repeats the word inferior in a whisper, as if replaying the scene's details in his head. Immediately, his head starts to spin, doubting who was really at the bottom of the power pyramid there. In silent agreement, the vice captain lowers her eyes, admitting the skinny stranger's bizarre aura. Straight to the point, the blue-haired knight brings her colleague back to reality, questioning the troop's perception. Speaking the truth, the soldier swears that the difference in strength between the entire patrol and the man in the black coat was colossal. Totally tense, the leader reveals the shock of the night, saying he mentally attacked the so-called Jin about 3 times without success. In the middle of the interrogation, the blonde captain had simulated several deadly lunges with his sharp sword. Swift and invisible, each projected blow in his mind aimed straight for the enemy's neck. But before the mental blade could even touch the hero's skin, the reaction was completely overwhelming. Immediately, a chilling aura of death returned the blow, cutting the knight in the same way in less than a second. Frightened by the revelation, the magical partner asks if the chief used divine power in his mental tests. Ashamed, the guy admits the magic didn't even have time to manifest before he was subjugated in his imagination. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the blue sorceress remembers the little girl from the forest glowing like bait. Confirming the general fear, the women of the troop confess to not having felt any nature spirits aiding the child. Doing the math, the squad discovers a huge gap in the continent's divine power levels. Sweating bullets, the captain murmurs that this commoner's level is on par with the supreme leader of the paladins. Furious at being made a fool of, the aggressive subordinate clicks her tongue in pure resentment. Tense in her saddle, she recognizes she came close to certain doom for barking up the wrong tree at the campfire. Trying to calm the nerves, the chief blames it on the target's bizarre presence, saying the rookie soldier wasn't at fault for her lack of advanced perception. Putting the pieces of the puzzle together, the squad connects the Dark Man to the monster massacre in Kodama at the speed of light. Even in the face of danger, the blonde captain adopts a cool demeanor, recommending they let the country boy slip under the radar for now to avoid unnecessary casualties. With no time for crisis, the leader changes course, ordering the cavalry to march to their final destination to report the mysterious appearance. With a quick taunt, the troop's sorceress tells the tough guy to watch his manners next time, lightening the mood of terror. The next morning, the majestic city emerges, shining under the new day's sun, indicating the scale of the reborn world. Far away and focused on the central mission, the knight mentally considers the utility of the strange savior in facing the kingdom's giant threats. Hitting the road, the duo continues their long walk along the sunny path, chatting animatedly. Very impressed, the girl wants to know if the entire official guard parades around with that insane level of authority. Not fooling himself, Jin spills the dirt, revealing that this select battalion is the true cream of the human military elite. Recalling the use of magic on the road, he analyzes the mysterious gift, dubbed spiritual power, as being nanomachine magic. Totally immersed in tribal culture, the girl shows her childlike logic, asking a little green elf for help to spit fire from her hands. In our MC's mind, the doctor's old technological cells have taken on the folkloric appearance of fairies and gnomes for the current peoples. With a faint smile, the platinum-haired man jokes, remembering that science has turned into mystical magic for folks living in an advanced prehistoric age. Immediately, a flashback hits, and the annoying guard's insult resonates in the traveler's head with full force. Feeling the offense from the previous night, the guy lets out a long sigh, complaining about being called a low-class species all the time. Dodging the trees, he brings up biology, noting that the Earth is inhabited by a salad of half-human, half-animal people. Full of questions, Jin mentions aquatic races and insect-like creatures to try and decipher the crazy evolution of the last 100 million years. Telling campfire stories, the little one reveals legends about the Dark Ages, where safe areas were absurdly rare on Earth. Explaining the general mutation, she swears that groups migrated to bizarre corners, adapting their bodies to become sea creatures or fairies of the dense forest. Processing the data, the hero understands the basic rules of evolution that shaped the survivors into the pure race. In a quick silence, he reflects on whether people became animals, and why the heck a normal person with smooth ears fell in class. Without fear of hurting the chief's ego, the guide lays it on the line, agreeing that the original humans are now the lowest rung on the food chain. Quite directly, she says that the normal genetic base loses badly to any adapted frame in the modern dog-eat-dog world. Making the news worse, our MC gets a cold dose of reality. The smaller species end up in the dark basements of the capital's slave trade routes. But showing she has a good heart, Hakama guarantees she finds the prejudice over silly differences in physical appearance unfair and absurd. On top of this barrage of misery, the little one argues that the world is crazy and people should have more real empathy. Surprised and happy, our hero praises the kid's honest character, feeling real pride in the protection work he's done so far. Suddenly, a heavy step snaps a dry branch on the side of the road, breaking the peace and love vibe instantly. From the sparse foliage, an agonizing cry for help hits the platinum-haired man's ears like an emergency alert. Completely wrecked and dirty, a blue-haired girl stumbles out of the bush onto the little road, falling to her knees in the dust. Running without thinking, the tribal kid supports the injured girl, asking if the stranger is okay. Staring at the exhausted newcomer, Jin is shocked by the convenient arrival of this disaster in the middle of their empty journey. Breathing heavily and spitting dirt, the victim lying on the ground loses strength, fighting not to pass out in broad daylight. With a sharp eye, the hero immediately notices that the fallen girl belongs to the hated inferior species, just like him. Trembling from head to toe, the little fugitive displays horrific injuries, staining the white cloth rags she wore. Shocked by the brutality, the tribal guide exclaims, pointing to the injured legs and torn arms of the strange girl. Pulling the newcomer into her lap, the native tries to console the girl, begging her to hold on through the pain of the cuts. With extreme calm, Jin puts his hands to work, charging his glowing palm with heavy-duty healing technology. However, a discreet metallic glint escapes from the supposed victim's desperate eyes, right in the little girl's face. In a brutal and dry tone, our MC barks the paralyzing order, telling no one to dare move a muscle in this set-up situation. Quickly, the mask falls, and the little fugitive presses a dull knife against the guide's thin neck, threatening a senseless bloodbath. A hostage in her own heroic act, Hakama's eyes go wide, understanding she just put her own life in a hole. Maintaining his icy demeanor, Jin stares at the bait act, remembering the blonde guard captain's reports from the night before. Laughing nervously, the kidnapper brags, thinking she fished the right suckers with her fake crying in the middle of the dark forest. Cool as a cucumber, the skinny guy mentally concludes that if the bait hit its mark, the whole gang of scoundrels must be camped out in the woods. Just then, the rustling of leaves gives away the approach of a giant brute coming down the slope to collect the violent toll of the ambush. Arriving full of swagger, the bandit praises his theatrical partner, marking the time to start the real horror show among the trees, and sealing the end of the silence on the traveling duo's path. Facing the armed gang, the bearded leader praises his blue-haired partner, saying she acted exactly according to the plan. Explaining the henchman's disappearance, he brags about their invisible camouflage, mentioning that the technology captures and mirrors the scenery in real time. Quickly, the mercenaries lose their invisibility, proving that the trick breaks as soon as they take the first sudden step. In the blink of an eye, Jin pulls out his hidden blade and presses the tip directly against the big guy's neck, who was talking nonstop. Frozen with fear, the sweaty leader's eyes go wide as the platinum-haired man warns that any sudden move means instant demise. Desperate with the situation, the bait girl recharges her hands with the same magic as before, wanting to protect her boss. Immediately, the tribal kid focuses her spiritual aura, blasting the energy weapon in the assailant's face before she can pounce. Serious and cold, the warrior scolds the native, warning that magic power isn't a toy for pointing at living people's faces. Startled by the scolding, Hakama swallows hard while the injured bait lies on the ground, still processing the brutal shock. Far from backing down, the leader laughs at the situation, thinking he hit the jackpot by confirming that the skinny prisoner possesses divine power. Doubting the rarity of the gift, the buff mercenary provokes, questioning if the platinum-haired stranger can light his own fire. Ignoring the sarcasm, the hero doesn't think twice and charges the nanomachines into a devastating lightning bolt under his coat. With no chance to react, the muscular henchman takes an electric kick straight to the ribs, tearing through his armor and chest for good. Furious, the bearded leader yells for his guys to take it easy, warning that you can't sell damaged goods. With greed shining in his eyes, the chief calculates that selling a magic-wielding inferior species slave will pay for the gang's retirement. Terrified, the tribal girl cries, remembering that these suited monsters are the worst kind of slave traders. Sealing the deal, the chief concentrates power in his wrist, threatening to knock the kids out with brute force if they resist. Faced with the leader's electric shock, the guide yells, swearing she won't let anyone put a sail collar on her neck. Trapped in an iron cell, our MC wakes up calmly, hearing the little girl's desperate cries in the dark corner. Immediately, the girl stops trembling with fear, letting out a heavy sigh of relief to see the platinum-haired hero regain consciousness. Asking if the kid is okay, Jin, in just his underwear, confirms that aside from the cold, everything is perfectly under control on his end. Confused by the huge bars, the warrior asks about the smelly hole where they were thrown while unconscious. Straight to the point, the girl reports that the place is probably the main base of the slaver gangs that control the forest region. Pointing to the cells on the other side of the hall, she warns that the packed place gathers all the smaller races that fell for the same cruel trick. Desolate and dirty, the victims in the giant prisons hang their heads in the dark, awaiting the worst fate of their lives at the slave markets. Pressing the naked stranger, the kid asks if he isn't too cold, thrown on that icy stone floor. Calm as water, the warrior explains that the gang stripped off all his super rare clothes, leaving only his useless underwear behind. Admiring his peace of mind, the little one points out that his face is way too relaxed for someone who just became a crime statistic. Demanding immediate action, Hakama furiously questions why he gave up the fight without lifting a finger to retaliate. With her pride wounded, she spits the words, saying that the village's savior just rolled over and easily lost to those two-bit thugs. Locked in the basement, our MC suggests the girl lower her tone, before the jailers come to demand silence. Suddenly, short steps echo on the stone stairs, announcing the arrival of less than friendly visitors to the prison. Carrying a meager tray with dry bread, the blue-haired bait appears at the cell door, announcing that dinner came early. Trembling with rage, the tribal girl runs to the bars, threatening to strangle the traitor who set up the whole circus on the road. Full of guilt, the young kidnapper sighs deeply, declaring she already knew she wouldn't be forgiven by the trick duo. Coming closer, she quietly repeats her surprise at seeing the prisoners actually stop to help someone bleeding in the woods. With a faint smile, she praises the little round-eared girl's innocence and genuine kindness, even in the worst situation. Thinking out loud, the fake victim assumes that kind people like that are a rare find in the rotten world up above. Sitting comfortably, Jin joins the conversation, decreeing that a true villain doesn't worry about forgiveness or sympathy. In the midst of the general shock, the platinum-haired man stands up suddenly, cutting the dramatic mood for good without an ounce of pity. Using his brutal super strength, the guy grabs the solid steel bars firmly, bending the structure as if it were a toothpick. Terrified by the sound of screeching metal, the blue-haired girl takes 2 steps back, trembling as she watches the monster break free. With the hinges busted and the cage destroyed, the stranger emerges free, casually dusting off his shoulder. Very calmly, the platinum-haired hero faces the blue-haired girl and says that the real plan was precisely to wait for her to come down there alone. Frozen with terror, the informant repeats, "Waiting for me," feeling the nightmare become all too real in her own hands. Backing the girl against the wall, he whispers, demanding the exact address of who is important enough for her to stay trapped in that hole. Scared stiff, the girl questions how he hit the heart of the secret without a crystal ball. With a stern face, Jin lays it on the line, saying that even the world's scummiest gang wouldn't beat a bait to a bloody pulp like that. Analyzing the raw wounds from the forest encounter, he proves beyond a doubt that the bearded gang was keeping her on a leash through heavy blackmail. Completely disarmed by his sharp logic, the kid breaks down, confessing the cruel truth behind all the filth. Sadly, she spills the beans, reporting that the cowardly henchmen sold her parents' lives to the region's vapid elites. Alone in hell, the girl swears to do anything to protect the life of her younger brother, who became a bargaining chip in the bearded leader's hand. Holding back tears, she accepts the role of a sewer rat, terrified that they'll separate her family for good. Crying nonstop, she screams at the dark ceiling that she needs to save her own blood at any cost, even if it means throwing ethics down the drain. Watching the raw suffering of the hostage, little Hakama understands the past betrayal and looks at the floor, filled with pure compassion. Dark as heck, the platinum-haired hero spits the word "trash" into the air, shifting the entire atmosphere into lethal hunt mode. Catching the dark intentions of his words, the guide asks if the platinum-haired man got caught on purpose just to find the root of the entire gang. Preparing his mental arsenal, the warrior smiles wickedly, comparing organized crime to an oil slick that spreads and stains everything around it. Giving the cold execution order, the guy states that letting even one scumbag go means he'll just set up another slaver den tomorrow. At the top of the stairs, the mercenaries break into a cold sweat at the armored door, swallowing hard at the promise of a massacre that leaked through the corridor, telling them they're about to become fertilizer. Suddenly, a wicked flying kick shatters the metal door, sending wood and hinges flying into the grim-faced guard's face. Bleeding on the floor, the guard goes flying up the stairs, screaming in pain, while his companions realize the game is over for good. Passing through the cloud of gray dust, our MC flashes a macabre smile, promising to grind the cursed organization down by its roots until nothing is left. In old memories, the scene suddenly changes, bringing back the blood-soaked nights from over 100 million years ago in the planet's dark past. In that dark era, our skinny boy wandered lost and aimless in a world rotted by the filth of chronic human desperation. Standing in the middle of a rainy street, the little boy dreamed of being a pure hero, watching colorful ads of those who truly fought the local gangs. Looking at the bright signs of hope, he nurtured the foolish childhood dream of making the chaotic world a place of divine light. Soon, the pale boy would look at his own cold hands, discovering deep in his dark soul that the concept of a hero is a cruel joke in times of chaos. In his broken perception, the world didn't need shining paladins wanting to save the filthy souls of the disgusting ghetto folk. Cornered in the damp alleys, the child version constantly clashed with the local bosses, who saw him only as a worthless, ownerless bag of trash. Trapped, the little boy fervently wished just to live quietly in his own corner, without having to show his face in pools of blood or in the middle of the criminal underworld. Unfortunately, the rotten survival of the fittest environment pushed the little kid from the sidelines into the chaotic and violent zone. Revolted by the constant injustice, the boy took for himself the ultimate truth that peace is won through a heavy fist on the neck of the wannabe king oppressor. In the heat of the alley confusion, the angry child mentally grinds the basic command to wipe the suited criminals off the map once and for all, every single night. Flying toward the big, suited man, the boy unleashes his accumulated hatred, delivering the direct impact of pure fury, exploding the fatal punch of an early judgment day on the aggressor's fat face. Focused on his twisted ideal, the young man continued to crush every dirty suited man in the underworld without any mercy. Sitting on a pile of bodies in the dark, he adopted killing as the #1 rule of his own daily routine. Suddenly, a scientist in a lab coat appeared out of nowhere at the base of the corpses, breaking the lost boy's cycle of blood. Calm and expressionless, the kid faced the man in white without letting his guard down for a single second. Straight to the point, the doctor laid the truth on the table, stating that the problem wasn't the violence, but the boy being born in the completely wrong era of civilization. Back in the present, the platinum-haired man drags the knocked out henchmen down the prison corridor as if they were torn trash bags. Terrified of the unleashed monster, the remaining mercenaries in the base scream, begging him to stop the immediate massacre in the hall. Bleeding from the nose, the fallen guards on the floor pathetically ask what the Platinum Demon's objective is in their base. Completely terrified, one of the henchmen tries to back away against the wall and questions how the infernal duo infiltrated the headquarters so easily. Smiling with a manic look, Jin exudes a lethal aura, feeling his blood boil with the desire to solve everything with a good old-fashioned brawl. In an explosive leap, he kicks a cat-eared brute, launching the bandit's body against the solid stone ceiling of the access corridor. Twisting his hips at high speed, the hero lands a right hook, destroying the armor and chest of another Wanib, tough guard in his path. With surgical precision, the protagonist dodges an iron rod and buries his elbow into the aggressor's ribs, cracking the poor guys on the spot without breaking a sweat. Falling like stones on the dirt floor, the mercenaries pass out, vomiting blood and shattering the gang's air of superiority at the speed of light in the oppressive environment. Faced with the pile of useless bodies, the bearded chief smokes his cigar at the cell door, eyes wide, demanding to know who the heck this monster in underwear is. Beating his army so easily in the middle of nowhere and without any magic in his hand. Dropping the last knocked out guard's body on the floor, the hero just contorts his face into an expression of pure, mortal boredom. Just then, a shrill scream of total panic rips through the base's silence, suddenly cutting everyone's focus on the upper floor. Startled by the macabre sound, the blue-haired girl's eyes go wide, instantly recognizing the desperate voice from afar. Terrified, the young kidnapper questions who the buff guy beating everyone up outside is. And the little girl from Kodama replies with the utmost calm that her partner is literally a god. Super confident, Hakama crosses her arms and decrees that leaving the dirty work in Jin's hands is a pure guarantee of total success in the end, and tells the girl to stay calm in the cell. Completing her thought, the native remembers the stranger's promise, and states that soon the sun will shine for everyone trapped in that smelly stone cage. Disbelieving the situation, the blue-haired traitor retorts that the bearded chief outside is saving an incredibly absurd divine power to use against rebels and crummy fugitives. Out in the corridor, the boss realizes his monstrous disadvantage and admits to himself that in a straight brawl, he doesn't stand a chance against the platinum-haired prisoner. Shaken to his core, the trafficker takes a step back, throwing the bribery card at the hero, asking if he's willing to negotiate all this violence for a lot of gold. Laughing nervously, the bearded man tries to make small talk, offering perks and leadership positions to avoid taking the same violent beating his low-level henchman just took to the face. Appealing ridiculously, the suited man suggests that Jin keep the slaves as a personal reward, pointing to the kids trembling in fear in the cages at the back of the hall. Full of falsehood, he promises to even hand over the hostage's little sister if the hero spares his useless life, and pretends nothing wrong happened in the basement. Silent as a ghost, the platinum-haired man listens to the scummy proposals with a look so dead it would make the devil shiver. Maintaining his cutting coldness, the guy asks if the leader's verbal desperation is finally over or if he has more lies to tell in his final minute of life there in front of the worn-out iron cell. Sweating buckets, the bandit stammers, not understanding the enemy's murderous passivity, mentally begging for a quick miracle of protection. Approaching slowly, our MC raises an eyebrow, asking for what scummy reason the boss didn't fire his famous spiritual magic right off the bat in their direct confrontation in the corridor. Backed against the wall, the bearded man thinks fast, calculating that the hero's mental intimidation must have blocked the magic's channeling at the root. Reflecting on his own advantage, the traveler scoffs, saying it's excellent to run into a half-baked villain who can't hold his own when things get really heavy in a straight-up fistfight. Hurt by the moral insult, the bandit seethes with anger, mentally retorting that real, hardcore bad guys tuck their tails between their legs and flee within the first 10 seconds of fatal, violent danger. Staring at the humiliated prey, Jin rubs the trafficker's face in the stupidity of underestimating a naked prisoner, thinking victory was guaranteed before the first punch even hit the air. Hammering on the scoundrel's character, our MC throws it in his face that the leader is a coward for resorting to disgusting bribery as soon as he tasted the imminent bitterness of defeat going down his dry throat. Desperate with the total humiliation, the boss understands the conversation is a lost cause and runs to pull the emergency lever at the back of the main corridor. Yelling that the game isn't over, he pulls the rusty handle, activating the secret base's bizarre system with brute force. Immediately, a loud screech of heavy metal rising reverberates through the environment, revealing the opening of a gigantic vault door in the prison's dark wing. Trapped inside the hidden cell, a purple, four-armed mutant beast roars loudly, slamming its enormous muscles against the pure steel bars, wanting to tear apart everything in the narrow path. Intrigued by the exotic pet, the stranger raises his voice, asking if that's the legendary invader that terrorizes the forest area around the base. Confirming the doubt, the chief admits that the deformed beast was custom ordered at the request of big shots from the capital for obscure combat trials. Laughing insanely, the mercenary thinks he's turned the tables for good, using the big monster as a personal shield to take on the cocky hero. Smelling blood, the mutant creature breaks the bars in half and leaps with its armed arms straight at the platinum-haired man, intending to crush the frail human body for good. Full of confidence again, the bearded man yells to the back of the hall, guaranteeing that the purple beast will dice and grind the magic prisoner to dust until the last bone flies across the dungeon's dirty floor. Focused on the massive muscle falling from the ceiling, the protagonist just narrows his eyes, waiting for the perfect moment to counterattack. Immediately, the four-armed beast collides with full force but hits an invisible shield of crossed arms from the platinum-haired man, kicking up dust. Too surprised by the skinny guy's flawless defense, the trafficker blinks 3 times, not believing that the human tanked the buff beast's initial impact. Holding back the creature's punches with his own hands, Jin explains with utmost boredom that he was born with a completely absurd and mutant body structure. Pushing the beast back, the guy flexes his muscles and claims that the density of his own nerve fibers leaves any modern brute force in the dust. Seeing that a dry punch won't break the purple mutant's natural armor, the platinum-haired man decides to ramp up the warm-up. Straight to the point, our MC warns that against a real invader like this, there's no need to hold back, and he's going to lay down the heavy heat without any mercy. Charging his entire body's cells with pure blue light, he swears to burn the beast using the so-called divine power concentrated at the limit of his human strength. Unable to withstand the heat of the magic exploding in the corridor, the chief retreats, crawling backward on the sweaty floor, completely terrified to see the light up close. After the deafening flash, the beast turns to ash, and the naked hero stops in front of the coward, asking with fine irony if the band is weak to environmental healing magic disguised as spiritual power. Smiling a bit too sadistically for his own taste, the warrior tilts his head, asking what the heck the boss plans to put on the negotiating table now, after all is lost in the smelly basement. Begging for his mediocre life, the animal-eared scoundrel puts his hands to his face and pleads for mercy from the naked god of nanomachines. Trying his luck, the chief insists with a crooked smile, in the crazy hope that the hero will forgive the kidnapping for free and let him walk away peacefully. A short, straight answer echoes before a colossal punch explodes in the coward's face, sinking the mercenary's skull into the solid stone of the blood-stained hard floor. Completely exhausted from beating up human trash, Jin finally puts on his beloved pants and coat, letting out a sigh of relief to feel his own dark, black style on his body again. Checking the fit of his clothes, the traveler tells the wind that he's put his lucky charm back on, ready to finish the boring job. Walking to the front of the children's cell, our MC asks for an extra minute of patience before he blows the cage lock with his bare chest and gets everyone out of there alive. Full of hope, the little victims press their faces against the bars, sighing with relief and eternal gratitude to see the guard monster finally dead and stretched out on the cold concrete floor. Explaining his sudden disappearance, Jin enters the messy chief's office, stating that releasing prisoners without proof of their official crimes is a sign of chronic stupidity for real guards and justice. Rummaging through wooden drawers, the platinum-haired man finds old paper scrolls and keys in a hidden corner, hitting the jackpot of local corruption. Suspecting foul play in the paperwork, he holds up a worn-out sheet, declaring that the document has the rotten smell of a set, up with important people involved in all the dirt in the dark. Soon his gaze focuses on the bizarre scribbles written from end to end on the yellowed page, scrawled with fresh ink in the form of an encrypted code. Understanding the embarrassing situation in a quick snap, the guy smirks, accepting the technical failure of the new era, where his school letters aren't worth a dime. Completely lost in the modern alphabet, our MC mentally admits he can't read a single thing, and looks like a fool staring at the secret sheet in his black, gloved hands. Sighing, he shoves the papers into his coat, mumbling that his little tribal guide will become his private tutor on the road the very next day. Crouching next to the weird remains of the four-armed mutant, the stranger reflects heavily, asking the heir about the hidden intentions of the people who ordered the beast's creation. Lighting up his right palm with greenish energy, he reaches into the viscous liquid to run a forced search on the residual system of nanomachines scattered on the blood-wet floor. Hacking the lost cells in the air, he pulls up the entire feed from invisible floating cameras, capturing the holographic image of the base from the last full week, just like a movie from our MC's remote future memory. Focused on the digital screens popping up in the dark air, he watches everything, looking for any big shots face from the capital, and knowing that tracking down the buyer is the only way to gut this plague of evolution. Illuminated by the data scrolling in blue code, our Avenger locks his cold, determined eyes on cleaning up the country's political filth at any cost and settling the score with brute force. Trapped in his own cell, the big, suited man stares at the royal soldiers, unable to believe the fall of his criminal empire. Laughing weakly in the dark, the captured leader scoffs, saying he has some hot gossip to share before he goes to the slammer. With his eyes gleaming with malice, the boss guarantees that soon the entire kingdom will burn in a gigantic surprise. Outside, under the morning sun, our boy stares at the city's main square, processing the night's damage. Surrounded by beautiful stone and wood houses, the street is already starting to fill with merchants opening their stalls early. Full of life, the crowded little square of curious civilians watches the guard team tie up the bandits in a long single-file line. Observing the scene with a tense and relieved look, the blue-haired kidnapper desperately searches for someone in the crowd. Suddenly, a high-pitched scream rips through the crowd, revealing a little blue-haired boy running free and happy as can be towards her. With tears in her eyes, the girl drops to her knees, arms open, waiting for the impact of the world's longest hug. Clinging to her younger brother, she cries rivers, thanking the heavens for saving the only family she had left. Very emotional, the blue-haired girl looks up at the platinum-haired man, calling the stranger a god in human form. Trying to cut the drama, Jin turns his face away, saying he's just some guy, and quickly changes the subject. Pointing to the guard arresting the rest of the henchmen, the hero asks if the red, uniformed folks are the military police. Quick with an explanation, Hakama clarifies that they're from the local guild, and that she was the one who yelled for help earlier. Without beating around the bush, the little one points to the bearded old man with horns, saying he's the big boss around here. Walking towards the kids, the suited old man thanks them and asks if it was the skinny, dark man who solved the enemy base problem. Presenting his credentials, the horned old man says his name is Badrak and he leads the guild, thanking him for the heavy-duty cleanup in the region. Focusing on the platinum-haired man, the master analyzes the boy in the black coat with a very sharp and suspicious eye. Realizing the stranger doesn't have a speck of dust on his shoes after wiping out an entire battalion, the leader knows in his mind that our MC is not to be trifled with. Completely astonished, the veteran remembers the old warnings, confirming that the forest mercenaries were the toughest of the tough. Reading between the lines, Jin quickly gets that the feudal lord of these lands is a real pushover who doesn't solve the problems in his own backyard. Confirming the theory, Master Badrak confesses that the local nobility couldn't care less about minor crimes, leaving everything for the guild to clean up. Very annoyed, the old man states that even if the king ordered them to stop, the guild would do the dirty work anyway on the sly. Explaining it to himself, Jin translates that in the New World, nobles are the mayors and guilds act as the muscle police. Immediately, our MC's head pulls up the file on a specific lord named Chapian, putting the name on his blacklist of targets. Pulling a roll of paper from his coat pocket, our boy hands the register found at the traffickers' base to the master to read. Eyes wide, the horned man loses his breath seeing the gang's ledger notes, proving a massive amount of slave sales. Full of anger and determination, the leader promises to get all the names on the list and put them all behind bars in the blink of an eye. Dark again, the platinum-haired hero locks his eyes on the old man, testing his honesty and asking if the so-called pushover lord's name is among the clients. Caught by surprise, the master chokes, swearing it's just a coincidence and trying to smooth over the skinny invader's crazy theory. Patting the kids' heads, the warrior focuses on the social problem and asks what will become of the freed children. Very sadly, the old man's answer confirms that the children lose their homes and are left high and dry without public shelter in the current city. Revolted, little Hakama shouts indignantly about the lack of basic infrastructure, asking where the folks are going to sleep in the cold. Bluntly, the master sighs, admitting that the inferior people suffer brutal prejudice to get even a heavy cleaning job. Lowering his ears, the little blue-haired brother shrinks in fear of the future, hugging his older sister with all his might. Noting it's the same old story, Jin grumbles about the stupid and useless prejudice of this new era. Grabbing the savior's back, the blue-haired kid begs for clemency and help because the kids have absolutely nowhere to run. Thoughtfully, the platinum-haired man stops in his tracks, changing his plans with a crooked smile on his tired face. In a mysterious tone, the traveler throws out a proposal for a guaranteed jig if the duo has the guts to face the long challenge. Quickly, the girl raises her hand, confirming she accepts the hidden job in a second without a second thought. In a quick flashback, the scene shows the blonde captain making it clear that if the country boy needed a hand, he just had to knock on the fancy cavalry door in the capital. Full of charm, Jin smiles Machiavellianly, saying that the blue-haired duo will be cleaning floors and serving coffee at the central station of the suited paladins. Far away, the view of the royal capital shines intensely, highlighting Captain Argus Walton's luxurious palace in the noble center of the metropolis. On the mansion's balcony, the blonde leader feels a shiver run down his spine, suddenly jumping as he senses an invisible threat creeping up his neck. Curious about the chief's startle, the magical lieutenant quickly approaches, asking if there's an emergency, and gets just a chill as a nervous response from the suited man. Regaining his composure, the captain dismounts his imposing horse, dusting off his luxurious armor after the long, tiring journey. Handing the reins to a soldier, He announces that the cavalry's work is done for the day and declares a break for the troop. Dismissing everyone, the leader advises the warriors to hit the hay tonight to recover from the stressful hunt. Entering the gigantic, high-ceilinged mansion, Argus steps onto the red carpet, looking tired and unfriendly. Quickly, the uniformed maids of the house line up on the staircase, giving a perfect curtsy to the lord of the mansion. Ignoring the fawning, the captain turns directly to the mustachioed butler, demanding an express report on the local gossip. Without showing any surprise, the faithful suited squire nods his head, confirming there's a big mess waiting for a solution on his desk. Tense, the blonde man clenches his jaw, fearing the worst news and feeling his stomach churn with nerves. Super formal, the butler apologizes for bothering him on his day off and gets straight to the report, not sparing any gruesome details. Reading a paper, the assistant relays the serious problems, focusing his gaze on the superior paladin's angry face. Alone in the colossal hall, the captain massages his temples after swallowing the big city's political and criminal gossip. On the upper floor, the hot-headed squire spies on the scene on the sly from the railing, leaning on the white marble, full of curiosity. Sighing deeply, Argus dismisses the lackey, grumbling that hearing the metropolis's daily bombshells is the dirty weight of the military job he chose. Grabbing his own platinum hair, the leader vents to the world that crime is breaking through the barriers much faster than predicted at the beginning of the month. In the captain's head, the information boils as he imagines gigantic, multi-armed beasts breaking down the walls of peace in the capital in a brutal urban chaos. Refusing to panic, he focuses on a cold solution, trying to find the blind spot where crime is leaking heavy weapons into the city. Calculating the worst-case scenario, his suspicion falls on the forbidden area of Harnisk Academy, where black magic and locked doors make the paladin suspicious of his own shadow. Acknowledging the urgency, the blonde man grumbles that he needs to find a neutral and tough as nails alley to infiltrate the corrupted grounds without calling in the cavalry. Back on the dusty dirt road, our platinum-haired hero walks calmly with the three kids in tow, setting the pace for their travel rally. Super relaxed, Jin tells the kids that everything is arranged in the capital, guaranteeing a spot for everyone with a quick fix. Teaching her the hard way, he tells the blue-haired girl to study hard to learn her letters and numbers by the fist, if she wants to survive in the big city. Motivated, she fills her lungs and flashes a wide smile, vowing not to disappoint the skinny, dark god. Suddenly, the tribal guide's ears twitch, feeling a different vibration, and she runs to the top of the hill, calling everyone to see the show. Enchanted by the bright light, the traveler in black takes a deep breath as the majestic view of the mega city invades his tired eyes from bottom to top. Laid out in a gigantic valley, the entire capital shines, revealing infinite walls, a central palace with towers, and a sea of rooftops covering the entire horizon under the clouds. Getting closer, the giant solid stone gates open the way to modern civilization, leaving the forest kids' jaws on the floor, completely shocked by the colorful and lively crowd. Impressed by the carts racing down the avenues, Jin smiles to himself, smelling the chaos and money circulating in the metropolis. Pointing to the fancy shops, Hakama repeats what her grandma said, emphasizing that the entire kingdom revolves around this place, bringing rare silks even to the dusty shelves of the luxurious capital. Remembering the campfire gossip, our MC agrees that the old woman had already aggressively advertised Kodama's fancy fabrics in the middle of the woods. Looking around, fascinated, the platinum-haired man admires each colorful spice stall, ready to deeply investigate the hidden corruption in this pressure cooker about to explode. Admiring the crowded market, Jin notices the salad of mixed races coexisting in the same tight space in the center of it all. Curious about the fancy stalls, the little blue-haired girl pulls on the savior's coat, pointing to the shiny silk imported from far away. Happy with the peaceful atmosphere, the platinum-haired man mentally notes that the kingdom's laws seem to work very well on the capital's clean and organized streets. Right after, his dark intuition pings, suggesting that under the surface, corruption must be running rampant like an invisible poison. Suddenly, the scene shifts to some weirdos in a poorly lit alley, conspiring some dirt against the big city's public order. Without taking his eyes off the street, the boy sighs heavily, thinking that every era raises its own villains from the dust, no matter how much society improves. Changing the subject in the middle of the rally, he asks what day the admission test for the highly sought after academy for the kingdom's children will be held. Focused on the calendar, little Hakama counts on her fingers, saying there are exactly 3 days left and that the deadline is super tight for the platinum-haired man to read the books in time. Right at that moment, a rich blonde girl passes by, throwing a barb, complaining about bumping into some inferior, mixed-breed scum in the middle of the fancy square. Ignoring the rude Barbie, the group continues walking until they reach the door of a giant brick and wood inn. Leaping onto the soft bed in the room, the two siblings almost cry with joy, smelling clean sheets for the first time in a long time. Leaning against the window, the traveler relaxes his shoulders, genuinely happy to have crossed the entire map while keeping his promise not to let the kids perish in the woods. After the initial relief, reality hits hard, reminding him that sleeping under a fancy roof has a very high cost of living in the noisy metropolis. Shaking the small pouch of coins won from the bandit's reward, he feels the weight decreasing worryingly in his gloved hand. Completely down to earth, the blue-haired girl warns that the guild money won't cover the luxurious rent forever in this city of coin suckers. Focused on the tight budget, our MC lays it on the line, saying he needs to enroll the kids quickly and find a profitable gig before his wallet dries up completely. Soon, the central plan resurfaces in his head, indicating that infiltrating the Magic Academy to investigate the villain's whereabouts would only be possible through the front door. Calculating the worst-case scenario, the hero sighs deeply, remembering Captain Argus's warning that the place was fortified to the teeth against tough as nails night intruders. Deciding on the academic route, Jin questions the prodigy girl about what the official path would be for someone to pass the written exams of the super competitive place right away. Without a second thought, the little one points out that the rich hire expensive tutors, but the broke folks frequent the dusty corridors of the Royal Public Library. Excited by the free option, he agrees that burying his face in books is the only smart way to master modern reading in time and understand the bureaucratic workings of the place. Immediately, the tribal kid throws a bucket of cold water on his plans, warning that her entire village had to do a massive fundraiser to afford her rare study books in the woods. Shocked by the inflated value of basic knowledge, the man in black curses the tremendous inequality demanded in this new era. Confirming the bizarre elitism, Hakama gets straight to the point, stating that reading a measly pamphlet here in the capital was a privilege of blue bloods and rich nobles. Defeated by the system's bureaucracy, the platinum-haired man collapses into his chair, questioning where he's going to find cash to rent the era's darn dictionaries. Very practical, the little one reminds him that the central building has free wings if a citizen has the guts to endure the funereal silence of the cold rooms. Igniting a spark of hope, Jin finds the suggestion excellent, planning to spend the night devouring entire encyclopedias about the history and dangers of the new mutant civilization. Focused on finding Kagura's lost lab, the boy knows that the secret blueprints of the deadly facilities must be lying around in the library's archives. Cutting his buzz comically, the horned receptionist from the guild laughs nervously, throwing a wrench in our skinny dreamer's all-nighter plans. Full of patience, the cute lady warns that the book collections are protected like gold by the government, so there's no free, for all for the round-eared common folk to take a stroll. Destroying the group's last spark of faith, the secretary decrees that only VIP students from Harnisk and nobles of the crown have the golden pass to step into the capital's high security historical shelves room. Feeling life's irony, the platinum-haired man agrees with the restriction, laughing internally at being a semi-illiterate person forbidden from touching a book precisely when he needed to decipher an urgent secret blueprint. Sad but not defeated, he confesses to having studied a bit of the new crooked letters and decrees that the mysterious academy will be the golden step to solving the corrupted country's mess for good. Standing in the middle of the alley, the traveler crosses his arms, asking what the next step will be, while a strange shadow crosses the dark background, stealthily watching their movements. In a quick snap, the guy recognizes the gossips, saying they're from the group that started trouble nearby the day before, plotting cheap revenge. Suddenly, one of the thugs blocks Jin's path, demanding a verbal toll in front of the kids, who are ready to run if the fight gets nasty in the dark corridor. Without leaving room for a dumb dialogue, the dog-eared bandit lunges forward, punching straight at the hero's face with all his might, thinking he would knock out the platinum-haired man in one quick surprise blow. Like a concrete wall, Jin catches the scoundrel's dirty fist in mid-air, blocking the impact with the calmness of someone stretching their arms on a clear morning. With a smile that would scare the devil, the traveler twists the criminal's hand, cynically commenting that he found the capital's streets to be as fortified as a high-clearance military fortress. Trying to yank his arm away, the animal man breaks into a cold sweat, realizing too late that he crossed the wrong demon in the alley forgotten by the day guard. Losing patience, one of the cowardly henchmen prepares a burning fire magic from back of the alley, aiming with total cowardice to toast the platinum-haired stranger into a flaming ball in the midst of innocent people. Twisting his hips at high speed, Jin breaks free from the initial punch, facing the orange light of the bright flame reflecting on his dark coat in the narrow stone street. Immediately, the magic explodes, throwing giant flames and kicking up dust over the rooftops, terrifying the tribal girl who trembles behind the commotion. Laughing insanely, the werewolf congratulates the stranger on his reflexes, praising the skinny guy's raw ability to survive their first nasty hit in the bustling capital. Annoyed as heck, the platinum-haired man furrows his brow, questioning if these idiots unleash firepower right under the crown's nose in broad daylight without fear of the heavy royal police knocking on their door, guns blazing. Completely cynical, Jin shrugs, asking which frustrated big shot sent the gang to do the dirty extermination work in an empty alley in the middle of the bright afternoon. Reading the henchman's pathetic reaction, the warrior figures out the puzzle, revealing that his skinny presence in the metropolis stirred up a big hornet's nest hidden within the area's rotten nobility. Smiling sadistically, the street wolf threatens that Jin's life in the city has become a game of cat and mouse, warning that every corner could hide a deadly and cowardly stab. Laughing in the werewolf's face, the traveler takes 2 steps forward, mocking the cute threat, and swearing he only really worries when he crosses someone as strong as himself. In a violent flash, the platinum-haired man's punch explodes, tearing through the wind before the bandit can finish his tough guy pose in the old, smelly alley. Completely static with surprise, the mutt's eyes go wide, feeling the phantom impact crush the bones of his own ribs against the wall for good. Grabbing the henchman by the throat, the stranger slams the fool onto the cobblestones at the speed of light, crushing the human trash against the stones of the beaten, rubble-filled street. Spitting blood and pain, the werewolf howls in agony, feeling his own power evaporate before the absurd level of violence from the strange, worn-out clothed country boy. Mad with rage, the fire-eared sorcerer charges the nanomachines into a burning red ray, yelling curses and firing directly at the black hero's unprotected back in his haste. Dodging the scalding fireball, Jin glides like butter in a smooth step, feeling the heat graze his dark overcoat before focusing on the new hot prey of the moment. Destroying the wall next to it, the magic explodes, scattering wooden splinters on the floor, proving the deadly cowardice of the attack from behind in the middle of a civilian street packed just a few feet from the avenue. Believing he got his target, the fox mage smiles victoriously until he feels a colossal shadow cover the sun above his silly head, suddenly in a dark second. In an insane dodge, the platinum-haired man appears in the fool's face, landing a brutal knee into his fragile stomach, cutting off the oxygen and the crummy sorcerer's cheap celebration. Flying from the brutal impact, the redhead collapses, spitting saliva, feeling like he took a hit from a runaway truck from the old era in a single, well-placed dry blow from the bottom up to his soft chin. Grabbing the defeated man's collar, the hero lifts the scoundrel off the ground, demanding that the pack leader only send a decent and capable soldier next time, if he wants to face the incarnated platinum nightmare there. Keeping the tension sky, IRMC throws a furious glare, sending the cold message to try and kill him again only if they have the guts to handle the ugly aftermath. Crying like a terrified child, the fox begs for his own wretched, miserable life, mentally decreeing that this piece of inferior species trash from the slums was a demon disguised as a skinny human. Suddenly, the brawl is interrupted by a feminine shout of command tearing through the alley's dirty air, ordering a general arrest and strict immobility for everyone in the zone of the hectic afternoon brawl. Pissed as heck, the military squire snarls that the street kids chose her day off, of all days, to stir up a giant mess in the middle of the dirty passage full of mud and fresh blood. Banging her spear on the ground, she orders the street kids and the stranger to handcuff themselves, promising to throw the whole lot in the Royal Cavalry's basement for disrespecting the public tranquility of a high-ranking guard on her holy rest. Pointing to the destroyed gang, the soldier's eyes go wide, hit with a violent dose of reality, as she sees the pile of beaten bodies scattered across the dirty alley, looking like canned ham ready for a sudden burial in a ditch. Focusing on Jin's peaceful face, the woman recalls the past humiliation at the campfire, pointing a crazed finger and screaming that it's the same dangerous country boy from before who terrorized the forest campfire in the dead of last night. Again, alerted by the scandal, the entire street gathers to watch the captain scream at the platinum savior, drilling it into the population's head that the stranger is a walking problem off his leash. Nervous about being caught, the soldier swallows hard, taking in the level of damage the man in black did alone to those heavyweight, guild thugs in a matter of 3 clean time seconds. Without backing down, the woman advances with her spear drawn, accusing Jin of being a born troublemaker since he barely set his stinking foot in the big city, and already started a fatal street fight with the hidden nobility of the suspicious local alleys. Spewing prejudice, she insults the traveler's species, linking his behavior to a lack of class and blaming him entirely for the bloody circus that ruined her peaceful passage and deserved stroll in the open market. Cornered by the cowardly and shameful situation, Jin sighs, peacefully explaining that he was just dodging others' punches in a clear and legitimate, brutal exercise of the sacred right of self-defense to survive there in one piece. Showing support, a noble and curious little girl steps out of the crowd, confirming that the man in the dark coat only defended himself from the cowardly attack from behind by the Shady Alley gang, taking a stand against the injustice of the snooty military order at that end of the street. Hearing the testimony, the lieutenant slowly lowers her weapon, realizing that the beaten-up bandits were wearing branded uniforms that the elite cavalry knew well from other unexplained underworld brawls. Changing her tone to an authoritative one, The soldier faces the defeated vagrants and decrees that the game is over, as she recognized the cowards as the jerk troublemakers infiltrated directly from the full corridors of the famous and fortified, suspicious Harnisk Magic Academy in the elitist center. Red with embarrassment, the Canine Knight mutters under her breath, hoping that the rich lady isn't in the middle of this mess. Masking her shame, she orders the guards to take the bandits away and tells the platinum-haired man to forget what he heard. With a smirk, Jin plays along, commenting on how the Holy Knights work hard even on street patrols. Promptly, the girl justifies herself, saying she was just grabbing a snack in the city and decided to lend a hand with public order. Narrowing her eyes, the squire looks at the stranger very suspiciously. Mentally, she notes the skinny guy's absurd strength, since the troublemaking academy students were not weak at all. Without giving him much attention, our MC says goodbye, turning his back as the guard warns him not to cause any more trouble in the capital. However, before she gets far, Jin asks the young woman to be his GPS and show him the way to a specific place. Surprised by the country boy's nerve, the knight stops in the middle of the street, not understanding the cheeky request. The scene then cuts to a gigantic, luxurious mansion shining under the moonlight, marking the property of Captain Argus. Sitting across from the suited man, the platinum-haired guy wastes no time and bluntly says, "Why us?" Completely stunned, the blonde captain listens as the stranger calls in the promise of help that was made back on the dirt road. Observing the people in the room, Argus notices the new kids and questions the group's growth, while Jin says it was pure chance. Shocked by the story, the paladin discovers that the kids were rescued from the clutches of the same heavyweight bandits he had warned about. Curious about the mercenaries' fate, the blonde man hears that Jin beat the heck out of them and left the rest of the trash for the guild to clean up. Terrified, the captain processes the absurdity and wonders mentally if the skinny guy in black destroyed the criminal base all by himself. To change the subject, he questions the reason for bringing the girls, since they are orphans and branded as an inferior species in the city. Straight to the point, our hero confesses that his intention was at least to find a decent job for the two of them in the cruel capital. On the defensive, Argus says the traveler has no obligation to play babysitter but gets cut off, with our MC saying it's just his way of doing things. True to his own principles, Jin declares that if he started the rescue, he'll see it through to the end, ensuring the kids' safety without doing a half-baked job. Faced with the firm speech, the blonde man and the squire exchange impressed glances at the honorable attitude of the man in the black coat. With their eyes shining with hope, the two siblings smile, feeling like they hit the jackpot with this tough guy savior. Giving in to the request, Argus accepts the children as servants to live in the mansion, eliciting screams of pure joy from the little ones. But the charity isn't free, and the captain's face turns serious, revealing a very clear condition to seal the deal. With a finger pointed, the big blonde man demands that Jin take on the role of an instructor, leaving the platinum-haired man looking dumbfounded, not understanding a thing. In the blink of an eye, the kids appear dressed in chick servant uniforms, looking incredibly cute. Satisfied with the look, the warrior crosses his arms, praising the new attire of the little workers. Full of gratitude, the two give a deep bow to Lord Argus, who immediately dismisses the formalities. To wrap things up, the captain warns the head housekeeper not to dare treat the newcomers with prejudice because of their race. Ready for the challenge, the house staff welcomes the siblings while our hero prepares for the real job he just accepted. Through the castle corridors, Jin immediately sees the trick and asks what the hidden motive is behind this teaching position. Being honest, the captain admits he doesn't know the stranger's past, but trusts his good character for a high-risk mission. Under the night view of the imposing Harnisk Academy, Argus drops the bombshell, revealing that our MC will go in as an undercover spy. Confused by the gravity of the matter, the warrior furrows his brow, demanding more details about this crazy secret agent story. Without beating around the bush, the blonde man explains that the country has become a target for various factions fighting for absolute power, making Jin curious about the king's whereabouts. Unfortunately, the monarch is on his deathbed, too sick, and the Cold War for the succession to the throne is already raging behind the scenes. To make matters worse, a bunch of people with no right to the crown are plotting bizarre schemes to seize the country by force. Furious with the cowardice, Argus reveals that the coup plotters are using the invading monsters and putting innocent lives in extreme danger. Quick on the uptake, the platinum-haired man connects the dots, realizing that the jerk slaver lord is just the tip of the iceberg among the traitors. In total agreement, the captain warns that danger is circling the capital, and they need to unmask the vermin's heady out urgently. A master of riddles, Jin concludes that the so-called Magic Academy has become the most suspicionist of snakes in the kingdom, and receives a positive nod. Just then, Argus knocks on the door of a chick room, announcing the group's entry to introduce a vital contact. Inside the luxurious room, the blonde man announces that the girl sitting there will be their official guide within the school walls. Full of poise, the blonde with crossed legs looks at the group as the captain introduces her as Milia, his younger sister. With a sharp gaze and a snooty attitude, the rich girl questions her brother about the presence of this bunch of country bumpkins in her room. Full of prejudice, Milia turns up her nose, asking if her brother is really going to put the infiltration on the back of an inferior species. Annoyed by her lack of manners, Argus scolds his younger sister, demanding immediate respect and reminding her that she's being way too much of a brat. Not backing down, the blonde swears she might tolerate the village kid but refuses to hand such a serious job to the skinny, dark man. Full of shame, the captain apologizes profusely to our hero, begging him to overlook the rich girl's rotten attitude. In pure mockery, Jin states that the so-called Kenny Knight is also loaded with prejudice, despite being a very talented warrior. Furious at the provocation, Milia gets up from her chair, snapping her fan shut forcefully and challenging the decisions of the Royal Guard's leader. With the rulebook in hand, she insists that the mission isn't just to spy, as the guy needs to actually teach classes like a certified professor. To test the stranger, the rich girl doubts his intellectual capacity and questions if the commoner has any aptitude for teaching advanced magic. At that moment, little Akama pulls on the savior's coat, whispering that he can't even read the alphabet, causing internal panic for the hero. Convinced she's won the debate, the noble crosses her arms, decreeing that hiring the bum is completely out of the question. In defense of her master, the tribal girl steps forward, guaranteeing that the platinum-haired man knows secrets that no one there has any idea about. Silenced by the child's argument, Milia shuts up for a second, rethinking her aggressive stance against the man in black. With her back to the group, the blonde yields a little, admitting that at least he has the brute force to keep the academy's kids in line. Even so, she locks eyes with the hero, warning that keeping rich teenagers in line requires much more than just big muscles. Suddenly, the room's door bursts open violently, and the Kenny Knight appears in the room, interrupting the tense atmosphere of the secret meeting. Straight to the point, the squire reveals that the troublemaking students from the alley were Milia's own lackeys, stirring up trouble in the city. Tired of the headache, the captain apologizes again, swearing to give his sister a monstrous scolding later, while our MC just ignores it. Focused on the mission, the rich girl wants to know what subject the skinny guy will teach, and hears from his own mouth that the topic will be spiritual magic. To confirm his resume, Argus points out that based on recent demonstrations, the stranger seems to be a true master of this type of power. Cool as a cucumber, Jin asks which part of the spell he should focus on the blackboard, saying that the basics are good enough. In a holographic display, the system shows the 4 pillars: ignition, discharge, freezing, and healing, stating that mastering 2 is enough to pass a student. Stunned by the simplicity, the warrior questions if that's the limit of the current era, leaving the blonde man confused by the arrogance of his statement. In disbelief, Argus's eyes go wide, deducing that the country boy can use special spells that almost no one in the modern world can master. In Jin's head, it clicks that the bandit leader from the forest, with his weak little shocks, was actually a genius by the feeble standards of the present. Faced with the pathetic scene, the platinum-haired man cracks a smirk, accepting the low level of the magic school. Brimming with energy in his hand, he swears he'll turn the logic of this mediocre society upside down in no time. A week later, the aerial view shows the gigantic harness campus packed on the big day of the admission exams. At the gates, it's a total rush, with students turning in papers and trying to secure a spot in the most competitive school for the nobility. Inside the classroom, little Akama is sweating bullets, focused on her written exam paper, trying to remember everything she studied. Far from the childish tension, our platinum-haired hero walks through the chick corridors, being received like a lord and grumbling about how boring the place is. Chatting in the hallway, the fluffy counselor comments that the 7th unit of the Holy Knights must be very busy, and Argus replies that it's just their turn now. Not understanding a thing, Jin follows the blonde man down the red carpet and asks whose turn it is for all this. Very calmly, the captain explains that once a year, a member of the order serves as a special instructor, and now it's his team's turn to take on the task. Just then, the big bearded man with bare ears disdainfully questions if a skinny country boy like him is even fit for the job. Cold and silent, our MC just throws a sharp sideways glance, assessing the guy's arrogance. Feeling the silent pressure, the counselor swallows hard and immediately shuts his mouth, not pursuing the matter. Quickly, the duo arrives at the main office door, and the fluffy man invites them both to enter. Through the double doors, they come face to face with the headmistress and the school's big shots, already waiting for the official meeting. Sitting in a chick armchair, the gray-haired lady maintains the serious posture of someone who runs the whole show. Maintaining military formality, Argus gives a respectful bow, saying it's been a long time since he's seen the old woman. Returning the greeting, the headmistress remembers they haven't seen each other since the blonde man graduated as the class valedictorian, and praises the warrior's quick success. Very polite, the captain thanks the old woman for her cooperation, who quickly says it's just her academic duty. Straight to the point, the old lady changes the tone of the conversation, revealing that the rumors in the hallways have been quite heavy lately. With a stern look, she comments that besides hunting corrupted monsters, the paladin is also deep in internal political disputes and betrayals. Completely understanding, the woman agrees that the lack of personnel in the order makes sense, since the leader's routine is crazy. However, the old woman warns that outside problems don't justify leaving the magic school in just anyone's hands. Sizing Jin up, she lets out the venom, asking if the captain really wants to put this suspicious character as a teacher. In a tense atmosphere, the entire room focuses on the skinny stranger, waiting for a convincing response from the paladin. Without showing any reaction, the platinum-haired man remains silent while Argus asks the stressed-out administration to calm down. Confident in his ally's power, the blonde man guarantees that the traveler is far more capable than any recruit from his own elite unit. Reinforcing his resume, the leader states that the newcomer is a true monster in pure combat techniques. Sighing heavily, the white-haired lady closes her eyes and accepts the nomination, trusting her former student's word completely. But a canine counselor suddenly freaks out, slamming the table and yelling that this is a complete and utter absurdity. Full of prejudice, the suited man points a finger in the hero's face, saying that the traditional academy has never accepted an inferior species on its faculty. Completely indignant, the animal man screams that a sacred position cannot be tainted by riff-raff, questioning if they want to shame the institution. Faced with the hysteria, the old woman passes the ball to the other chubby counselor, asking his opinion on the whole scene. Stroking his beard, the feline lord agrees with his colleagues' fit, reminding them that the school is the cradle of the rich nobility's children. He then warns that putting a guy from the bottom of the pyramid to teach will generate a general revolt among the snooty students and teachers. Weighing the situation, the headmistress confesses that emotionally, she also finds the idea terrible but decides to maintain the impartiality of her position. Passing the floor to the target of the insults, the lady asks to hear the traveler's defense, and he accepts the invitation on the spot. With a firm step, the warrior in the dark coat steps forward, cutting through the prejudiced chatter in the room. Full of class, the platinum-haired man politely introduces himself as Shido Jin, from the distant village of Kadama. Very impressed by his posture, the old woman notes that the guy took humiliation to the face and remained as cool as a cucumber. But the stranger's blood boils, and he casts a dark look, warning that he has just one doubt to resolve before accepting the job. Straight to the point, Jin asks if he's useless for the position because he's branded as an inferior race, or if the folks think he lacks raw skill on his resume. Laughing at his audacity, the lady states that the issue is about strength, guaranteeing that real talent silences any prejudice within those walls. Quickly, the hero asks for a chance to prove what he's capable of, and the old lady accepts the challenge without hesitation. To settle the dispute, the suited blonde man suggests a practical combat test in the middle of the school's courtyard. Cutting to the outside, the scene shows the academy's colossal testing arena under the midday sun. Standing on the packed earth, Jin and the canine counselor face each other, while the suited man brags about the lack of an audience due to the admission exams. Full of swagger, the snooty professor scoffs, saying the country boy is lucky not to be embarrassed in front of the rich kids. Silent as a statue, our MC couldn't care less about his vain opponent's cheap provocations. From the stands, the old woman shouts the rules, warning that the duel must use only pure spiritual magic and no bladed weapons. Smiling, she justifies that seeing real strength in practice is the best practical test for a heavy magic instructor position. Just then, some curious students notice the strange activity and start gossiping about the mock battle that's about to happen down below. Attentive to the duel, the rich girl Milia crosses her arms, revealing that she's never seen the canine professor fight for real. Extremely bored, our hero sighs, calling this whole charade a ridiculous and bureaucratic waste of time. Eager for a show, the headmistress asks to see the pitiful limit an inferior species can reach in a high-level magical combat. Without blinking, the blonde captain analyzes the field, confessing that he'll also be seeing the platinum-haired man fight for real for the first time. Recalling from memory, Argus remembers that the physical levels of the inferior folks are terrible, and even using divine power, the damage is usually minimal. Preparing his attack, the suited canine man tells the country boy to brace himself, and hopes he didn't misread his opponent's strength. With a sadistic face, the little office villain cracks a macabre smile, ready to turn the test into a public humiliation. Accumulating fire in his palm, the suited wolf yells, warning that he'll give the first attack with all his strength. Immediately, a colossal explosion kicks up dust in the entire arena, showing the raw impact of the orange, flaming magic. Far from the danger, the rich students cheer, impressed by the fiery flash tearing through the middle of the courtyard. Thinking he's all that, the counselor notices the audience and decides to ham it up to gain points with the spoiled kids. Charging both his arms, the guy conjures an insane electric storm, ripping through the air with loud yellow lightning bolts. Calmly, the platinum-haired man glides across the ground, dodging the swift shocks while his enemy screams with pure childish excitement. Without letting up, the cowardly professor mixes fire and lightning, trying to fry the stranger in every corner of the dirt field. Laughing arrogantly, the little villain accuses the hero of only knowing how to run, reaffirming his blind prejudice against his species. Full of himself, the Wani beast wolf yells that he may not be a holy knight, but he was once the great valedictorian of that famous school, flying with an absurd flaming aura. The guy decrees that the slum trash will never stand up to the intellectual elite. Faced with so much empty spectacle, Jin just lets out a tired grunt in the middle of the gray smoke. Blocking the flames, the warrior laments that the spiritual gift was created to heal the planet, not to hurt humans in a straight brawl. However, since there's no other way to prove his worth, the man in black assumes a combat stance, prepared to end the circus. In the blink of an eye, our MC's right palm accumulates a dense and incredibly threatening blue energy. Forming a miniature black hole, the traveler warns that he's going to show a small free sample of his true talent. Suddenly, the canine professor freezes in midair, feeling a deadly chill as the entire ground cracks beneath him. With a bizarre boom, gravity smashes the pretentious wolf against the stone, sinking the poor guy's face into the arena floor without him even being able to breathe. Shocked by the absurd, invisible pressure, the headmistress and the fluffy counselor get a huge scare, losing their noble composure on the spot. Static in the stands, Captain Argus feels a chill down his spine, confirming his prodigy's absurdly overpowered level. Completely paralyzed, the rich blonde girl can't believe the dirty miracle the skinny country boy just performed on her master. Pressed into the dirty ground, the professor stammers in terror, asking what the heck kind of invisible spell broke his ribs in mid-air. Stepping firmly beside the defeated man, Jin coldly explains that he just manipulated the area's gravity with a subtle touch of the nanomachines. With a frightening smile, the new professor warns that the students of that academy have a lot to learn from the true dark strength of the ancient era. Enveloped in a dark aura, our hero warns that the moral lesson isn't just for the students, but for all the snooty teachers at the school. From a general view of the arena, the damage is clear, showing the absurd crater that the invisible power dug into the hard ground. Pale with terror, the suited wolf looks up at the platinum-haired man, feeling the pressure of the black magic crush even his soul. In a swift move, Jin snaps his fingers, breaking the heavy enchantment on the spot. Immediately, the canine professor collapses on all fours, desperately gasping for air. Dominated by fear, the defeated man screams in panic, demanding to know what kind of witchcraft the stranger used against him. Blinded by his wounded ego, the wolf points a finger, accusing our MC of using a dirty trick, since he's never seen such a dangerous spiritual magic in his life. With not an ounce of patience, our warrior grabs the loser by the collar, putting the coward in his place. Faced with the show of force, the gray-haired headmistress makes her decision, stating that the new instructor's hiring is more than settled. In the stands, the rich girl Milia and the other students' jaws drop, commenting that it was surely a very rare special spell. In total shock, the blonde asks her classmates if they saw the same absurd thing she just witnessed. Confused by the mutant biology, she wonders how the heck an inferior species can have so much sacred power if they didn't even receive the spirit's blessing. With wide eyes, the noble breaks into a cold sweat, trying to process the anomaly that broke all the rules of her world. While Jin tells the battered professor to shut up and calm down, the girl mentally questions the true identity of the man in the dark coat. A week later, the landscape shows the giant academy castle under the sun, where the true purpose of the place would soon be revealed. Straight from the packed auditorium, the opening ceremony makes it clear that the real focus there is to train elite warriors to crush the invading monsters. Very strict, the headmistress warns that the weak students who can't handle the heat will be expelled without an ounce of pity. With a glowing hologram in her hand, the old lady swears that the graduates from there have a guaranteed spot in the order of the capital's holy knights. Facing the crowd of freshmen, the old woman reinforces that each one's bright future depends solely on their own strength and talent. In the upper box, the teachers comment that this year's class is full of commoner students and newcomers without blue blood. Suddenly, a hand waves in front of the rich girl Milia's face, catching her attention in the middle of the serious ceremony. With a giant smile, a red-haired lion named Reyes strikes up a conversation, surprised to see the blonde there since she usually ignores events with common people. Wasting no time, she returns the insult, saying that the little lion is only there to hunt for contacts and kiss up to rich, noble freshmen. Just then, the redhead furrows his brow, noticing a bizarre anomaly on the dark side of the teacher's box. In disbelief, the guy questions why the heck there's someone of an inferior species sitting in the master's chair, and soon hears that the platinum-haired man is the new instructor. Shocked by the gossip, the lion screams in disbelief, and the blonde takes the opportunity to ask his opinion on the skinny, dark man. Sweating profusely, Reyes freezes, not knowing what to say about that sinister presence in the black coat. Very serious, Milia confesses that she also thought the guy was just a piece of inferior species trash, but quickly swallows hard, remembering his crushing power. Far from the gossip, Jin stares at the auditorium from above, thinking about the colossal size of the campus and calculating the absurd amount of work it will be to investigate it all. With an analytical eye, our warrior assesses the environment while planning the next steps of his secret mission in the corrupt magic school. In the middle of the crowded corridor, our hero feels the crooked stairs burning his back and decides he needs to erase this image of inferior trash urgently. Frustrated with the situation, he grumbles that instead of looking like an undercover investigator, he's drawing more attention than a clown in the middle of the main street. Aware of the challenge, our MC decrees that the first step is to earn the respect of the snooty elite kids. Inside the giant amphitheater-shaped classroom, the main professor announces the return of the intense lectures on spiritual magic. Warning the elite class, he tells the kids not to let their guard down with the freshmen, but then ironically says that advice like that doesn't even tickle the veterans. Just then, a wicked smile crosses the canine professor's face as he invades the class full of bad intentions and venom to spit. Confused by the empty chairs, the headmaster complains about the lack of students, questioning if the folks just lost their will to study. Sitting in the stands, the rich girl crosses her arms, rolling her eyes and confirming that she's there against her own will. With a sadistic laugh, the suited wolf mentally confesses that he spread malicious rumors on campus just to empty his platinum-haired rival's class. In pure falsehood, the little villain sees Jin entering the room and says that the emptying happened just because the lecture would be given by an unworthy commoner. Feigning politeness, the wolf makes room at the pulpit, calling the stranger professor, and asking him to introduce himself to the handful of people there. Calm and unshaken, our warrior steps forward and reveals the name Shida Jin, maintaining his Dark Lord posture. Straight to the point, he announces that he'll be teaching spiritual magic for a while and hopes their teamwork will be fruitful for the season. Immediately, the little red-haired lion throws his legs up on the table and scoffs, asking if the skinny guy can really handle the heat of teaching a tough class. Without losing his composure, the platinum-haired man retorts with a sharp look, stating that the answer to that is something the class itself will have to find out the hard way. Leaving the choice free, Jin states that if the class seems useless, the door is right there, but the little lion just laughs at the warning. Changing his tone, the hero imposes a golden rule, forbidding the kids from using divine power against other people under any circumstances. Lighting a blue sphere in his hand, the impromptu professor explains that spiritual magic is used to stop the absurd healing of mutant monsters. To better illustrate, the scene shows the ancient technology melting the green core of a giant abomination on fulminant impact. During the tactical explanation, Jin reveals that the spell doesn't block human regeneration, causing only normal injuries, and throws the question of why into the air. Clenching his glowing fist, he answers it himself, stating that this weapon was forged in the past solely to crush colossal beasts. About to end his speech, the warrior looks at the rich girl Milia, imploring the new generation not to corrupt the vital purpose of the sacred force. Suddenly, a scandalous laugh cuts the silence, and the wolf professor calls the platinum-haired man an idiot, stating that raw power has no rules. With his hands on his head, the little villain scoffs, saying he came to watch the class, just to laugh at the rookie asking students not to use their own weapons. Spewing prejudice, the canine accuses the stranger of being afraid to be embarrassed in a real battle because he's too weak to take a punch. Following the professor's lead, the rich students start to whisper and laugh at our MC's face in the middle of the immense amphitheater. Tired of this bunch of vapid, spoiled teenagers, Jin lets out a heavy sigh, feeling a headache pound at the back of his neck. Casting a murderous glare at the suited wolf, the platinum-haired man challenges the guy to prove his supposed weakness right there on the podium. Caught by surprise, the rival's eyes go wide, hearing the stranger tell him to charge his most overpowered magic and shoot to kill. With open arms and a cynical smile, Jin makes a heavy promise, vowing to disappear from the academy forever if the cowardly attack draws a single drop of blood from his body. Taking the bait immediately, the snooty professor cracks a giant smile, believing he's won the day and his cocky rival's swift dismissal. With a spear of lightning charged in his hand, the wolf tells the platinum-haired man not to cry with regret, because there's no going back from this stupid challenge. Without moving a muscle, Jin awaits the blow while the headmaster panics, screaming for the lunatic to stop before the whole room turns to dust. Completely insane and ignoring the student's safety, the villain hurls the electric spear with maximum force, yelling for his opponent to swallow the damage. Fast as a rocket, the yellow flash crosses the room straight for our dark-coated warrior's motionless face. With a deafening boom, the lightning explodes, raising a curtain of black smoke and sending debris flying everywhere on the wooden stairs. Very satisfied with the show of destruction, the cowardly wolf smiles arrogantly, thinking he fried the audacious country boy to a crisp. Suddenly, a sharp beam of black light cuts through the smoke, deflecting the giant electric spear and breaking the enemy's magic right in the middle. Like a deadly boomerang, the deflected projectile grazes the canine professor's ear and shatters the wall behind him with a frightening impact. Sweating buckets and nearly having a heart attack, the little villain feels a chill down his spine, understanding that death just kissed his neck in that crazy millisecond. Emerging unscathed from the dust with his eyes glowing blue, our hero coldly warns that if he wanted to, he would have returned the attack straight to the guy's cowardly face. Summoning hexagonal shields at his fingertips, the platinum-haired man states that judging a book by its cover in this chaotic world is the perfect recipe for a coffin. After the shock, the little red-haired lion freezes in his chair, unable to believe the precision of the counterattack, questioning out loud if that was really healing magic. Facing the scared professor trembling in his boots, Jin turns the tables verbally, reminding him that he took insults all morning but just proved to be 1,000 times superior. Pointing the glowing energy towards his rival, the hero delivers the ultimatum, asking what title they should call him now, and promising to give the answer by force if the guy gets it wrong. Standing at the podium, the platinum-haired man assumes the posture of a master with a confident smile, calling himself Professor. Without missing a beat, he questions if the canine professor knows the real conditions to activate spiritual magic. With a serious look, our hero demands an immediate answer, throwing it in the villain's face that he just tried to kill him. Completely lost, the wolf stammers, asking if the trick doesn't just depend on imagination during a fight. To demonstrate the theory, the rival creates a flame in his hand, saying you just need to focus the divine power and project the image. Straight to the point, Jin agrees that visualization helps but lays it on the line, warning that this isn't the activation rule. Summoning his own bluish light, the warrior explains that the nanomachines need to receive a specific wave frequency. Faced with his opponent's dumbfounded look, our MC reveals the secret existence of 8 mental wavelengths. On the invisible blackboard, he lists the classic magics of fire, lightning, wind, and ice, warning that the whole class already knows this. However, the entire room is left speechless when the new instructor announces that the spell menu has extra power. In an absurd demonstration, he creates a heavy gravity black hole and then a blinding flash in his palms. Playing with the laws of physics, the man in the dark coat manipulates the atmospheric pressure, just like he did in the duel outside. Closing the practical lesson, a perfect cubic shield appears, illuminating the traveler's serious face. Completely hysterical, the suited wolf screams, asking if the stranger can use all 8 types of magic at once. Smiling cynically, Jin creates a spark and returns the lesson, warning that just as the lightning became a spear, imagination dictates the form of the spell. Closing his hand, the platinum-haired man extinguishes the light and ends the demonstration, changing the amphitheater's mood on the spot. Full of authority, the dark professor summons the entire class to begin the real lesson. Later, the scene cuts to our hero walking alone through the chic corridors under the light of the setting sun. Deep in thought, he grumbles about the hellish mission of investigating the giant school without raising any red flags. But the intense movement of students everywhere hinders any stealthy search in the campus's main blocks. Determined to change his tactic, the traveler focuses on finding a restricted area just as the rich girl crosses his path. Upon meeting the blonde's eyes, he notices the heavy suspicion stamped on her scowling face. Without beating around the bush, Milia stops in front of the master, demanding to know who the stranger is behind this little act. Bluntly, the noble states that he was never a common commoner, and Jin agrees with the accusation, flashing an ironic smile. Crossing her arms, she decrees it's impossible for an inferior species to handle all the magical elements so easily. A smooth talker, the hero says anyone can do it by changing the frequencies, but the girl tells him to stop lying. With sharp reasoning, the blonde retorts that if it were that easy, the entire school wouldn't be drooling in shock. Leaving the rich girl talking to herself, the platinum-haired man turns his back and calls the student to debate in a quieter place. Right behind, the noble follows the professor's steps, demanding the official answers he owes her. In a purely mocking tone, Jin confesses to being an ancient human who slept for 100 million years and gets called a joker. Incredulous at the crazy story, Milia asks what his job was in that prehistoric era. Calmly, the traveler confesses he did a lot of things and reveals he used to clock in as a special government agent. Curious, the blonde translates the military term, imagining a grunt who gives his blood and life for his own country. With a nostalgic look, the platinum-haired man confirms the theory and swears he beat up countless villains in the chaotic past. In old memories, the scene shows Soldier Jin equipped with tactical armor, leading invasions on high-tech bases. Images of shootouts and explosions prove that the warrior lived in the midst of gunpowder, fighting bloody wars. Intrigued, the girl asks how a lethal soldier like him ended up in a sleep pod, and the short answer's a big, "I failed." Without shirking the blame, our MC admits that the arrogance of trying to solve all conflicts alone cost the entire planet. In the flashback, colossal mutant beasts destroy the cities while he laments having lost everything without being able to protect a single soul. In the present, he decrees he became a professor to be the shield of the new generation, but the girl's nobility rejects the sad talk. To change the subject, the blonde wants to know the destination of their gloomy walk, and hears that she's just fulfilling her role as the Academy's guide. Slowly, the old wooden door creaks, revealing a dark, dust-filled room at the end of the stone corridor. Confused, Milia asks what dirty little room this is, and Jin explains it's the old, forgotten teacher's supply closet. With his sharp gaze on the basement walls, the platinum-haired man narrows his eyes, feeling a bizarre vibration in the environment. Immediately, our hero walks to the wrecked bookshelf, inspecting every millimeter of the rotten wood. With a snap of wind magic, he sweeps the dirt out of the way, while the guide questions the guy's craziness. With the castle blueprint in hand, the blonde points to an empty, illogical space in the middle of the stone structure's drawing. Suspicious, the professor lifts an ornament on the shelf, certain that the hiding spot must be right there. In the same second, the gears grind heavily, and the bookshelf slides to the side, revealing the school's dirty trick. Before the mysterious door, the duo focuses on the darkness of the secret corridor that no one in the higher-ups knew existed. Impressed, Milia asks how he found the perfect trigger in the middle of that filthy, dusty mess. With his finger on the old ornament, the hero explains that the object was too clean, proving that someone turned the fake handle every night. As soon as he enters the darkness, our MC tells the rich girl to stand guard at the door, but the stubborn girl enters with him. Focused on the mission's safety, Jin warns of the mortal danger of running into a mutant monster in those shadows. Full of swagger, the blonde puffs out her chest, flaunting her high grades and swearing that her magical talent is on par with her captain brothers. With a smirk, the warrior gives in to the flawed company and trusts the snooty prodigy's escort. In the middle of the endless stone staircase, the platinum-haired man illuminates the whole, creating a very practical floating sphere of light. Realizing the absurd depth, he comments that the tunnel goes all the way to heck, and his partner praises the lantern spell. Frightened by the place's vibe, the rich girl compares the corridor's heavy atmosphere to a fantasy game dungeon. Resuming the interrogation, the blonde goes back to focusing on the skinny stranger's supposed past as a villain hunter. Quick on the uptake, the girl asks if the professor already has any suspects from the school in his sights for the night hunt. With a tired sigh, the hero admits to having a target in mind, but thinks the guide is asking for too much gossip for the first day of their partnership. In our MC's head, the image of the good-natured feline counselor flashes strongly, marking Lord Rudman as the main traitor. Curious about the choice, Milia asks for details, and Jin lays it on the line, saying the fluffy guy pretends to be friendly but his mind is blank in the corners. Through psychological reading, the platinum-haired man states that the chubby guy has the exact profile of a pawn being forced to do the criminal work. Surprised, the rich girl confesses she blamed the whole conspiracy on the scandalous wolf who took a nasty beating in the arena. Finding the guess amusing, the warrior dismisses the canine professor, calling the guy too dumb and explosive to pull off a smooth scheme like that. Suddenly, the floor ends, and the hero raises his hand, asking for silence at the end of the terrifying tunnel. Under the magical light, the duo discovers a colossal and absurd cave dug right under the foundations of the Noble Academy. Confused by the pharaonic work, Jin questions what the heck this is, while the blonde points, trembling, at the giant metal structure. Shocked by the twist of fate, the traveler's eyes go wide, admitting he never planned to stumble upon the base so quickly. Right in front of them, a gigantic reinforced steel vault door guards the armored secrets of the ancient world. Facing the lock, the hero recognizes the global laboratory that Dr. Kagura hid throughout the planet's underground. To confirm the theory, the door pulses with blue circuits, screaming the massive presence of nanomachines in the security lock. Frozen in shock, the rich girl Milia stares at the titanium wall, unable to believe that a bizarre technological treasure like this was sleeping under the school's corridors. Facing the colossal door, Milia takes a step back, asking if they have any chance of opening that iron monster. With his arms crossed, Jin confirms that normally they'd need an access key, and the girl sighs in defeat. Tightening his glove, the warrior remembers the shape of little Akama's necklace, which activated the ancient nanomachines. In the flashback, the shining necklace reappears, proving that the little leader inherited the free pass from the heroes of the past. With a faint smile, the stranger says that if it's just a matter of access, the lock won't be any trouble for him. Focusing the energy in his hand, the platinum-haired man touches the digital panel, and the blue system instantly confirms Jin's VIP-level entry. In a series of booms, the heavy steel locks turn, unlocking the 100-million-year-old vault. Flinging the gates open, the professor warns that the guys trying to bring chaos to the country can only be the school's hidden masters. Pulling the answer, the hero decrees that the real traitor surely has a key identical to the little village girls. Pale with terror, the rich girl's teeth chatter upon discovering an Apocalypse command center hidden under the students' chairs. Trying to understand the sorcery, The blonde questions how the skinny guy opened the vault without having the said key in his pocket. Cold and cocky, the traveler replies that being an ancient human has its own exclusive factory, installed advantages. Losing her patience, Milia demands to know if he really swears he came from 100 million years ago, receiving only silence in return. Far from joking around, our MC focuses on the bizarre scenery, noticing giant cages lined up in the hall. Looking down, the duo is faced with a colossal area full of scattered equipment, proving that the lab has become a heavyweight monster containment facility. Intrigued, Jin questions why colossal beasts would agree to become pets in normal cells. Through the cage glass, a muscular stone mutant stares into the void without making the slightest effort to break the bars. Connecting the dots, the hero remembers the monsters tamed by the Tallbooth gang and states that the bandits were using the same suspicious containment. In front of a giant beast with several orange eyes, the warrior notices the strangeness of the corruptors, calm as monks. With her hands on her hips, the rich girl concludes that her brother, Captain Argus, was spot on about the academy hiding some thick dirt. Focused on solving the mess, the blonde pulls out her fan, suggesting they set an ambush in the room to catch the traitor red-handed. Cutting her off, our MC rejects the strategy, telling the girl to prioritize exterminating those monstrous beasts right away. Desperate, Milia screams, asking if the professor would rather let the coup leader escape scot-free through the front door. Trembling with anger, the student throws reality in his face, saying that the students upstairs will be the first targets if the cage is open. Evoking the royal guard, she argues that even her paladin brother prioritizes the people's safety over arresting the dirty boss. Sighing heavily, Jin admits that the kid's logic aligns perfectly with the code of honor of the heroes of the past. But the platinum-haired man narrows his eyes, warning that his dark instinct for disaster is pinging strongly in that macabre basement. Without beating around the bush, the stranger tells the rich girl to run upstairs and call Argus's army to seal off the campus for good. Scared but firm, the student turns her back and runs back through the dark tunnel to fulfill the urgent request. Alone in the metallic corridor, the professor stares at a bizarre sundial stuck on the damp stone wall, smelling ancient trouble. Staring at the sinister object, Jin hopes to quickly find the master clue that will decipher the complete mess stirred up in the present. Focusing on the clock, he notices the magical hands vibrating at an abnormal rhythm, pointing to something about to explode. Far away in the school courtyard, the wolf and feline counselors walk calmly among the students under the blue sky. Laughing nervously, the canine grumbles about his failure in the arena, admitting his tough guy reputation went down the drain. Freaking out and sparking, the big wolf blames the round-eared platinum-haired man for his own ruin and promises to screw the guy over. Completely indignant, the mediocre professor can't swallow that a skinny country boy can cast 8 types of magic at once with a straight face. Full of ego, he states that the newcomer is using a dirty trick and vows to expose the farce by force, no matter the cost. Trying to calm the lunatic, the headmistress and a female professor call the jerk's attention, asking him to stop his crazy act in the hallway. Out of patience, the old woman tells it like it is, warning that, if he likes getting beaten up, that's his problem. But his screams were scaring the kids around. To escape the drama, the gray-haired lady asks the weird wolf if anyone has run into Lord Rudman on campus that day. Startled by the question, the canine stops whining and confesses he hasn't laid eyes on the fat counselor since the official ceremony. Worried, the headmistress reveals that she needed the fluffy guy to approve the emergency curriculum for the new students. Suddenly, the old woman's gaze focuses on the back of the courtyard, noticing a bizarre detail moving. Frightened by the colossal shadow rising over the academy's towers, the wolf stammers, asking what kind of black cloud that is. At the same time, in the inner corridor, the rich girl Milia runs like a rocket to warn her captain brother in time. Exiting the secret basement, the panting blonde pushes the bookshelf door back, relieved to find natural light again. Sweating coldly, she rests her hands on her knees, catching her breath after the marathon up the cave's staircase. Quickly, the noble recomposes herself, ready to run for the royal guard, when a deep voice breaks the silence. Frozen with terror, Milia freezes in her tracks upon hearing her own name echo deep and sinister from the corridor's darkness. Emerging from the shadows, the chubby, suspicious-faced counselor reveals himself, blocking the passage in a bizarre and dark manner. Wasting no time, the girl calls his name, revealing Lord Rudman with a completely horrifying, sadistic smile. Back in the hidden lab, the final vault's red door slowly descends, announcing the real prize for the platinum-haired warrior. Surprised by the brightness, our MC's face darkens, questioning what the heck kind of absurd energy he's witnessing. In the center of the room, filled with cables and panels, a colossal red sphere of pure energy shines, emitting sounds of a controlled explosion. Fascinated, Jin analyzes the red core, noticing that the sphere pulses alive like the heart of a giant monster exposed in the metal. Shifting his focus, the guy moves to the control panel, finding the researcher's journals and questioning if Kagura built that crazy reactor. Typing on the rusty keyboards, the hero unlocks the last records, recorded 100 million years ago. Immediately the side case opens, showing the famous power syringe and the floating cube of the scientist's life, saving nanomachines. Focused on the device, he mentally hopes the doctor left some blueprint or manual explaining the current time bomb. As if answering his request, the projection of his doctor partner flickers blue in the middle of the room, calling Jin's name on the spot. Super excited, the holographic scientist celebrates the soldier's arrival, swearing that the place is right next to the original pod. Without beating around the bush, the guy in glasses explains that the old rooms forged a revolutionary artifact in the dark years. Pointing to the greenish syringe, the doctor confesses that half of the bizarre recipe is already in the nanomachines injected into the hero. Full of ego, the scientist adjusts his glasses and tells the platinum-haired man to guess the divine utility of the cutting-edge technology cube. In the basement, the trapped monsters start to scrape their claws on the bars, indicating the end of the calm is near. On the wall, the gleaming clock's hands accelerate wildly, signaling the arrival of the core's massive energy. Beating like a desperate heart, the red sphere concentrates enough power to rip through the school's ceiling at once. Illuminating the shadows, the doctor's hologram hands the secret artifact's purpose to the impatient soldier on a silver platter. Smiling confidently, the blue light defines the infernal machine as a pure matter teleporter, sealing the sinister revelation. With floating apples drawn, the explanation shows time travel between doors, proving the technological miracle of the extinct era. Shocked by the danger, the hero instantly connects the dots, realizing why that ugly invader attacked the base out of nowhere. Staring at the hologram with wide eyes, Jin swallows hard, confirming that the monstrous beast in the hall fell straight from the energy portal. Cutting the cute animation, the scientist focuses the camera on the round, harmless teleporter he built in the old base. Faced with the macabre contrast, the hero feels a chill down his spine, pointing out that the clean, neat cylinder of the past looks nothing like the bloody red bomb of the present. Looking at the giant, pulsating sphere, our MC decrees with silent desperation, asking himself what nuclear abomination the traitor leader created in front of him. Marking the time of the apocalypse, the bizarre sundial makes a metallic click, turning all its gears at once. Immediately, the red core rips through the room with a deafening flash of pure energy, engulfing the entire laboratory. Shielding his face with his arm, our warrior recoils from the impact of the light, mentally screaming about the portal's absurd strength. In the blink of an eye, the secret basement's cages glow intensely, confirming the start of the mutant nightmare on the surface. Roaring from within the bars, the colossal corruptors begin to vanish from sight, sucked in by the invisible rift. Banging the iron gates, the brutal beasts evaporate in the red light, leaving the dungeon completely empty and stinking of sulfur. Cutting to the surface, the magic soldier crosses the courtyard, screaming Captain Argus's name in complete desperation. Looking up, the suited blonde man just scowls, confirming that the entire royal capital has turned into a chaos zone. Far from an exaggeration, the city's blue sky has been torn open by a demonic red pillar, raining giant beasts upon the noble rooftops. At the academy, the rich girl Milia freezes in terror, digging her nails into the wall as she spots the evil presence blocking the exit stairs. Blocking the tunnel, the chubby Lord Rudman cracks a horrifying smile, greeting the noble with a sickening calm. With fire in her hands, the blonde snarls, demanding free passage and accusing the fake master of commanding all this filth from the shadows. Too relaxed, the fluffy man raises his eyebrows, praising the little meddler's quick deduction. However, he shakes his head negatively, warning that her courage came too late to save any soul out there. Revealing the scheme, the traitor smiles macabrely, admitting that the total extermination operation of the metropolis has just been unleashed before them. Laughing nervously, the obese counselor confesses that the plan was for next week, but the platinum-haired man's invasion accelerated the end of the world. Furious at the old man's madness, the rich girl glares at the traitor with a murderous look, ready to toast his face. In the basement shadows, Jin runs at full speed, sensing the danger and realizing that the fake leader is a very serious problem. Dashing up the steps, the hero admits his intuition was right, and the Beefy Lord has become a bigger pain in the neck than Argus himself. To seal the deal, Rudman praises the stranger's instincts, confirming that the country boy has already mastered the secrets of the 100-million-year-old vault. Terrified, Milia swallows hard, realizing that the suited professor knew perfectly well about all their secret movements down there. Mocking the blonde's heroic pose, the sadistic master questions if the little snooty girl has the guts to pick a fight and win a duel against him. Without waiting for an answer, the fluffy man begins to float, surrounded by a bizarre aura, swearing on his life that he now possesses more than enough power to wipe anyone off the map. Screaming like a lunatic, the chubby traitor stretches his arms, claiming to have embraced the invincible and ultimate force of the dark universe. However, the shouting is cut short by a giant clay pot flying from behind him, hitting his furry skull dead on. Strutting her stuff, the little native from the forest Kudo yells loudly, stating that the real new, raw power is in her hands now. Caught by surprise, the rich girl backs away, stuttering at the sudden brawl in the middle of the serious confrontation. Wiping sweat from her forehead, the young heroine breathes a sigh of relief, claiming she saved the day at the very last millisecond. Face down on the floor, the little fluffy villain passes out, feeling the weight of the pot crush his false hopes to pieces. Confused by the crazy ride, Milia asks what the heck the forest kids are doing invading the forbidden, secret teacher's room. Ignoring the question, Hakama points to the sky, terrified, screaming that the city has gone completely crazy and they need Jin's monstrous help. Confirming the story, the native explains that her partner saw the platinum-haired stranger dive into that dusty little room earlier. Awkwardly, the new student trembles like a leaf, stammering her introduction as Kudo Prutsa and asking for the blonde lady's pardon. Nervous, the little leader hits her friend, questioning the stupidity of knocking out a noble professor in the middle of the official corridor and causing a huge scene. Maintaining her anonymity, Hakama swears their masks are safe and blames the rich girl for the cowardly attack from behind, while Milia huffs with anger at being called Madame Potato. Suddenly, heavy footsteps rip across the stone stairs, showing that the calm lasted less than a sigh of relief. Trembling, little native Kudo's bright eyes go wide as she hears the buttons clicking aggressively from that side of the darkness. Breaking through the dust, the platinum-haired hero emerges panting from the cave, staring at the obese master passed out on the cold floor of the book depository. Running for a hug, Hakama warns our MC that the streets are burning in chaos, and the warrior just scowls, confirming he's aware of the disaster. Dark as heck, he snarls, saying that all the cage corruptors in the basement simply vanished into thin air, mysteriously. Swallowing her fear, the blonde connects the pieces and her eyes go wide, realizing the absurd disaster the canine leader has summoned outside. Flinging open the academy gates, the troop rushes out, running across the open courtyard and coming face to face with the real apocalypse. From the top of the giant walls, the view is terrifying, showing the ancient capital covered in thick smoke and pillars of flames tearing through the chick streets. Completely crazed, bestial wolves and corrupted soldiers hunt defenseless civilians, destroying goods and running over stalls in the main square. Flying over the inferno, demonic eagles sink their claws into the crowd, dragging screaming victims through the air in a true, senseless bloodbath. Smashing the stone houses, the colossal foot of the giant mutant deforms the ground, proving the brutal level of destruction of the freed horde. Facing the muscular beast, the nobility's buildings look like dollhouses, ready to be turned into brick dust without any effort. On the horizon, the King of Tentacles breaks through the walls, rumbling in a deep tone that makes the ground tremble far away on the Academy's safe hill. Furious, the monster with the hideous maw flexes its muscles, letting out a roar that shatters windows and announces that the capital is free lunch today. Shaken to her core, the rich girl cries, feeling that the end has truly come as the country collapses into the clutches of the rotten, merciless horde. Pained by his own tactical error, the warrior clenches his fists, grumbling that he miscalculated the risks and should have sliced up the time machine down there before gossiping. Tugging at his clothes, little Akama screams, pointing her thin finger at a disaster approaching the center of the chaos at absurd speed. Charging bright energy in its giant mouth, the tentacled beast aims directly at the intact walls of the main palace, its hatred floating in the air. In the blink of an eye, the disgusting beast concentrates the golden magic, screaming before spitting pure death towards the defenseless royalty. Unstoppable, the scalding yellow beam rips through the smoke, cutting across the entire city, prepared to wipe out the heart of the kingdom in a single, cowardly, and definitive shot. Terrified by the deadly trajectory, the noble goes into shock, realizing that the entire royal family will be incinerated in a flash if that laser hits the strong castle. Pulling out Kagura's famous briefcase, Jin opens the lock forcefully, declaring he'll take the blame for his own dumb mistake right away and guaranteeing he can handle the impossible blow. Squeezing the syringe in his hand, his glove explodes in blue electric currents, releasing the sealed power of the Jurassic teleportation technology into his flesh and blood body. In his memories, the smiling scientist explains that the serum is the practical summary of the space-faring contraption but breaks if it exceeds its daily use limit. Restricted to short distances, he warns that the magical workaround saves your skin. If you need to cross spaces the eye can see right in the middle of a fierce chase. Tearing through the skies, the colossal yellow energy blast dives relentlessly toward the heart of the royal castle. Immediately the warrior activates the syringe's power, turning into a beam of pure light that disappears from the courtyard, startling the girls. In the exact millisecond of impact, the platinum-haired hero appears in the air right in front of the palace towers, crossing the laser's path. With his palm open, he summons a gigantic hexagonal barrier, taking the destructive explosion on his bare chest and stopping the apocalypse in mid-air.